And we're live.
All
Hi,
right.
everybody. Welcome to Branch of Laurels. I'm a Shaxi from Ontier, and I am a Laurel who interviews Laurels. And tonight, my special guest is Sir Faris from Atenveldt, now Outlands. Knight of the SCA, Laurel, Lion of Atenveldt.
Correct.
And former Baron of...
Trisket there.
Thank you.
Sometimes known as Triscuits and beer.
Oh, that would help. So we usually ask for your SCA origin story. How did you find the SCA and what made you fall in love with it?
So my origin story is kind of interesting. There's like two parts of it. So I grew up in Massachusetts in this little town of about like 80,000 people. Fall River, Massachusetts, and at the time it was part of a shire called the Shire of Smoking Rocks. Yeah, so a very weird name for a place, but it is what it is. I was in high school. It was my senior year in high school, and it was sometime in like January, February, and my neighbor, like my friends from the neighborhood, were like, "Hey, we were walking by this place, and we saw these dudes in armor, like outside, out front, like on the street." And we asked them what was going on. They said that they're in this medieval club and we should come and check it out. So like we got all the kids in the neighborhood together to go check it out. And so we went, and it was at this place called the Music Mansion. And it was a 3-story building, really old brick building that they, on the first floor, they sold musical instruments and stuff like that. And then on the second floor, they did like music lessons and teaching. And on the third floor, it was just open and empty. And it had like a 35-foot ceiling and solid like oak flooring. So, we went up there and there were dudes in armor hitting each other, and it was thunderously loud because of all the, because it was inside, and it was pretty amazing. And that's actually where I first met a friend of mine who eventually became a master at arms called Master Patrick. We call him Master Pat, and he is still a foundation there in that now barony. But so the first time I ever put on armor was there at that practice. Again, it was my senior year in high school, and all my D&D neighborhood buddies kind of were like geeking out on it, and we were pretty excited to find something totally new and different. We tried to kind of find some LARP stuff, other LARP stuff, but we're unsuccessful at that. But this was literally within walking distance of our neighborhood, so we could go whenever we wanted. And they had fighter practice on Friday.
You froze.
Cut it out of barrel plastic with a saw. So that was kind of the first thing. But the sad part of that was that after my senior year in high school, I ended up moving to Arizona. And the odd thing is that I didn't know that the SCA existed outside of the Music Mansion in Fall River in my hometown. I didn't have any understanding that it was a nationwide thing, or worldwide thing. And it was just, I just thought it was these crazy dudes, in my hometown who got together and put on armor there and fought. So that was, I kind of left that behind and then discovered it again, probably 5 years later. I was gaming group, and one of my buddies in the gaming group worked at a convenience store, and he said, "Hey, this guy I work with, he's super into this medieval thing. We should check it out." And I kind of like got excited about it because I'd already known and I'd already been part of, been in, not in it, but kind of exposed to it before.
Right.
So I was super excited that this was actually going to be it again. So basically, he introduced me a second time. This guy that was at, clerk at a convenience store, and kind of took off from there. That was in Tucson, Arizona, and I pretty much sometime in the neighborhood of 95 is kind of where I got my start in Atenveldt and really kind of got my feet wet. Went to Estrella soon after that, and that was kind of my introduction and how I found the SCA. And what really brought me in was just the fighting. I mean, I was 21, 22 at the time, and
Are you back? You checked out for a second there. Your screen froze. Sorry. Can you hear me?
oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Not very well.
Well, so
It's funny. I work online on this computer, all day.
and of course now it's gonna go kaput. Hmm. I don't know what to do. Let's see. All right. Are we back? Well, we're having some technical difficulties. Oh, you're moving again.
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll work through it. This happens sometimes. So you got with convenience store guy and he got you going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, convenience store guy, he got me interested in the second time, but I think we're still having some more technical difficulties.
Oh, there it goes again. Shoot. I can hear you. There we go.
Can you hear me? That's good.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if this is gonna work. I think we're good. Let's try again. Oh, awesome.
Oh boy.
Oh, okay. So did you experience somebody reaching out to you and kind of get sucked into a group right away?
Yeah. So the guy who I met, like the convenience store guy, his name was in the essay, his name was Malik. In real life, his name is Dave, and he's a really great recruiter. Um, I mean, he brought in me and like four other dudes from my D&D group right away, and we all just kind of like jumped in. And so we kind of joined up with him and his brother, who later on who got knighted and became my first knight in the SCA. So I think my biggest stumbling block at the beginning of all of that too was the fact that it was really difficult for me to find armor. Um, like all the other stuff, like the body armor and stuff, I was able to kind of make, fashion together. I'm kind of handy, but I couldn't find a helmet. My head is giant. I wear a size 8 baseball hat, so it's not like you can just pick something off the shelf. So luckily for me, there was this guy in Tucson. His name was Tim Jensen, I believe, and he had this armory called Tenku Forge, and basically he made a deal with me. Basically, I would come in, and at the time I was working, so I would come in after work, and he made a deal with me where he would show me and basically walk me through making three really simple, basic helmets, spun bowls that he would finish up and then sell. And then after those three helmets sold, he would make me a helmet for myself to have. So for me, that was great. It was, putting in some sweat equity and learning, how to make all this stuff, or at least to make some of it. And so that's what I did. And I got my first helmet. So, and I was directed to Tengu Forge by that dude Dave Malik, who became my squire brother. I want to eventually, but he, like I said, he's an amazing recruiter. He pretty much, you know, could talk anybody into. He should have been a salesman. He could talk anybody in anything. I mean, and he had a great network of people where he's like, oh, you need a helmet. Well, let's go ahead and there's this guy, he's local. Let's go and talk to him and see what we can come up with. So yeah, he pretty much like got me in and then got me hooked and then got me hooked up, which was even better. So I pretty much owe everything in the SCIM to him just hooking me in. So.
And is he still around?
Yeah, he's still, so he doesn't play as much anymore. He's still in Tucson. Him and his wife both, had played on and off for a long time. He started in Yuma, Arizona, and then him and his brother moved to Tucson when they were, in their early 20s, and then just kind of stayed there. But I do see him occasionally. He came out to a Crown tournament, the last Crown tournament I fought in Atenveldt. He came out, it was in Tucson, and he came to the park and said hi, and we shared a beer and reminisced. So it was nice to see him and his family. And so he's still there. He's just not recruiting as much. He has some other interests, and so he's doing that stuff. But yeah, pretty much I got hooked because Malik hooked me in.
That's really cool. Who were you aspired to? Who was your first night?
So my first night was Rylik Stormbringer. He was a local knight in Tucson, and like I said, when I first joined, he wasn't a knight. And we just kind of had a household together, and it was me and Malik and Rylik and a couple of other dudes, and we all just kind of fought under the same banner. And Rylik was by far and away the best fighter. He had been playing kind of the longest, and he eventually got knighted. And then me and Malik and a couple of other buddies of ours just like, okay, we're squiring to you. I mean, I made him a squire's belt for a vigil present. And in his vigil, I was like, here, I'm giving this to you so that you can give it to me because I know it's going to fit me and it's the belt that I want. So here you go. So yeah.
You have no choice.
Right. Essentially, you have no choice. So yeah. And then after he got knighted, he played pretty strong for a while. And then, life kind of took over for him. He had a child, and I actually moved from Tucson to the Phoenix area, and then I kind of fostered out. I fostered before it was like fostering was like an actual thing, and it was and people were doing it. My first wife was really good friends with this female knight, Sursmania, and Sursmania's husband at the time was Craven. And so because our wives hung out together all the time, Craven and I hung out together all the time. So Craven pretty much became my foster knight in every sense of the word. He kind of, Rylik had stopped playing. I had moved to another city. So Craven kind of like took the reins and kind of guided me to the end of the path.
Awesome. And did you guys ever make that an official relationship, or was it always just kind of?
It never was official, but when I got knighted, I wore 2 squires belts into the ceremony, and I gave 2 squires belts back. I gave one to Rylik because Rylik did show up for my knighting, and I gave one to Craven. I just thought, like I said, it wasn't anything official. It was really before people were really doing it, at least in Atenveldt. But I definitely thought that he deserved to be recognized, at least, somewhat, because he did definitely get me, across that finish line to the next chapter. So, but yeah, it was never official.
Right. But he's like the knight of your heart in a lot of ways.
Oh, he's my best friend. I mean, yeah, he moved to Tucson, years later. I moved to Tucson not long after. I mean, yeah, Craven is definitely and always will be like one of my best friends and one of my biggest mentors. And if I ever have any problems or any sticky situations, pretty much he's the first one I call.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Did you also have an art mentor? Did you apprentice to anybody?
So I did apprentice to somebody. So like I said, for me, finding armor was really difficult. And, so I made a lot of my own stuff. Um, and then there was a point where I was at Southern Crusades, which is an event that tourists get their hosts. And I went to the Windrose Armory booth where Master Johannes and at the time, Master Mikolaj were both working there. The business is owned by Johannes. Mikolaj was his apprentice who then got laureled and then kind of continued to work in the shop and sell armor through the shop. So I'd gone to Windrose Armory and I bought a helmet that actually was the right size, and I was super excited. I bought that helmet and then got it home, padded it out, and I became what later is like an armor's worst nightmare. So I put this helmet on and I got it all. I didn't put any straps in it, but I put this helmet on and I was all excited. And I put my gorget on with it. And then I was like, this helmet doesn't work with my gorget. I need a new helmet.
Oh no.
Yeah. So later in life, this will, I became the person that like $25 gorget doesn't determine whether or not you love this $5,000 to $1,000 helmet. You have to swap out the $25 gorget and maybe, live with the awesome helmet that you love instead of trashing that idea. But I did that. I went back to him later on and was like, hey, this helmet doesn't fit me. Well, it fits, but it won't fit my gorget, so I need a new helmet. So at that time, I was still living in Tucson, but like literally months later, I'd moved to that was the first time I'd moved to Phoenix. And Johannes was working in a shop in downtown Phoenix. And I'd given him the helmet back, and I was kind of like, in contact with him every now and then. And every now and then he'd be like, yeah, I'm working on something for you. It'll be done. And, I was kind of a pain in the ass. So he would just be like, yeah, I'm working on it. Don't worry about it. And then when I moved to Phoenix, I was like, oh, well, I'm here. I'm going to come down and see what you're working on. It's not always the smartest thing to do because, this is like somebody's job for one, and it's like their studio where, so, but I didn't really care and I invaded that area. So I went down there and, yeah, he was definitely working on something and it was, super cool. And, I started like showing up more and more and was like, hey, can I help out with this? Or I could probably use some elbow cops. Can you show me how to make that? I mostly became a pain in the ass and spent a lot of time there. And eventually he was like, look, you're here all the time. Do you want a job? And I was like, well, it's funny. I just lost my job last week. So yeah, I want a job. So I started working for Johannes, and the great thing about Johannes was with the whole helmet situation, I literally got paid on the clock to finish the helmet that I purchased from him, you know, all those years ago that he was replacing. So he basically paid me to finish my own helmet. But yeah, so that was kind of the beginning of my my mentorship with Johannes. I didn't really didn't serve like an SCA apprentice. I mean, I was pretty much like a modern apprenticeship. I mean, it was he showed me how to make the thing that we were making to make money. So yeah, I, I I worked in Windrose Armory on and off as a professional armor for probably 8 to 10 years. So when people say like, oh, well, what about that person's body of work? Like at that time, I could look on the field and be like, yeah, that person bought a helmet from us, and that person bought a helmet from us, and that person and that and that. So, you know, thousands of helmets. I mean, we would try and break our record every year from when we would go to Penzic. We would bring like the first year, I think maybe we did 18 helmets. And then the next year, there was like 20 something helmets. And then Dungal started coming to the shop. And then we were just like, helmets. So it was like a trailer full of helmets. It was, at that time, it was like amazing. We brought more helmets than any other armorer, and probably more helmets than some armories combined to Penzic, when me, Dave, and Johannes were all working in the shop on a regular basis.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that dichotomy between doing paid work and doing art for the SCA. I worked a couple of years after I was Laureled, for another Laurel friend, in a costuming business.
Mhm.
And it was weird to get paid for work that I would have done not paid before.
Sure.
Like, somebody would hire us to do some royal costumes, and I'm like, I've done so many royal costumes not paid.
Right.
This is really weird. So it's that's a weird thing to navigate.
It is. It was. Like now, like like Dungal said, like I got a real job and make real money, and not that armoring didn't make me real money and put food on my table and put a roof over my head. But now I have the luxury of basically being able to do armor like when I want, how I want, if I want. And it's totally different than coming in and basically like, oh, punch the clock Monday morning, and like, all right, let's start cutting out cheek plates, and all right, let's start cutting out gorget parts. Definitely different, and through it all, Johannes, made it interesting enough, and he always kind of was there to be like, all right, we got a special project, or like, hey, we're going to do Fridays as our R&D day. So he, instead of like burning out after making 1,000 gorgets, he continued to make it really like fun to come to work, and especially like I said on Fridays, where he'd be like, all right, we're going to do R&D today. Let's he's like, I want to try and do this 14th century faceplate, so we're going to work on this together. So you cut it out, I'll get some drawings, and then we'll turn on the gas, and we'll start heating metal up and hitting things with a hammer. So that was something that was cool, like I said, because after you make 1,000 elbow cops, it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's really easy to burn out, but Johannes really was there to kind of like school me and like keep me interested.
That's a really smart thing to do with employees, because I've also done production line sewing, and wow, it can be really mind numbing.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to get this thing called like spaceship brain. We're at the buffer, and you're just kind of buffing something, and your mind just goes away because you buff 20 elbow cops, but you still need to buff 200 more, and you're just kind of going, and you're thinking of all kinds of random things. Yeah, it can definitely just be, when you, and the scary thing is that, when you're working with a buffer, and, it's going like how many RPMs, and you need to pay some attention, but after a number of elbow cops, you're just like, spaceship brain, oh wait, I better shut this off, take a break, step back, and
because it's a weapon.
Yeah, I mean, Johannes is good at recognizing, like, hey, let's go to lunch. All right, let's go to lunch.
It's time to take a walk.
Yeah, let's do something else for 10 minutes just so that you can get your head back on straight.
That's smart. That's really smart. Somebody wants to know, Kaz wants to know, where did your love for shoes come into play?
Yeah, I do love shoes. I think I got my first pair of Bohemian boots sometime probably around 1997. So shoes are a big thing in medieval and in any kind of reenactment, I think. I mean, it's probably one of the more difficult things to come by, and one of the more difficult things to find that are either historically accurate or comfortable, or a good combination of both. And then, like, once I kind of found the guy who makes the boots that are both comfortable and historically accurate, like, I've made myself a couple pairs of shoes that are just not what I like, but I don't know. Yeah, I think so we're in this medieval club where we dress up, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if we're gonna dress up, we should probably have shoes to go with every outfit.
Shoes are key. They're really,
Yeah.
really important. There's nothing like you see somebody out on the fighting field in this gorgeous kit, and then they've got like either engineer boots on or tennis shoes. It's like, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I was that dude. I had wore engineer boots for a while, and because I didn't want to fight in my Bohemian boots. And then one day, Bohemian was like, "Hey, man, these things like I build them to take a beating, so go." And I never looked back. I fight in Bohemian boots, and they look really, really medieval, and I love it. So
My
yeah, I
sister
mean,
does too. My husband fights in tennis shoes, and I think we need to get him some boots.
for sure. Even so, like I've had Bohemian's amazing, and I've known him for as long as I've been a merchant. When I was merchanting with Windrose, I got to really kind of know him because we'd always be at the same events, right? Because he's selling boots, Windrose was selling armor, so I would go and like in my break times and off times, I would go and chat with him every now and then. But I mean, if you want low ankle boots, he can hook you up. If you want tall boots, I have a pair of boots that's 15 years old that are like super tall, like up to the crotch. And
Wow.
I fought in them for probably 5 or 6 years. I When I was Baron, I don't think I wore any other pair of boots to an event. And I think I resold them one time. I mean, I lived in those boots for the entire time I was Baron. So once you find something like that are comfortable and medieval looking, yeah. But it's I got three to five different Laurel medallions. I got 20 different chains. Why wouldn't I accessorize with shoes? As well.
This is the only Laurel medallion I had for a really long time, and then Nick made me one this year.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, I can have two.
You can have as many as you want. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I don't know how many chains. They just all hang up in the closet. So, I just pick out which one I think is going to go with the outfit I'm wearing. I mean, the funny thing is in the modern world, I wear jeans and t-shirt every day, and I never wear any other accessories. I mean, that's it. But when it comes to SCA stuff, I have chains upon chains upon chains and spurs and laurel medallions. And, I only have one lion medallion. But that was the one that was gifted to me when I became actually a month after I became a lion. But yeah, that was, that's the one thing I don't think that like I have multiples of.
Yeah, that seems to be something that is just like a special thing that you only have one of.
Yeah. Oh, so I got my lion from Edward, and it was his second reign. And when I got the lion, he apologized, and there was not a medallion there. He had forgotten it at home, and Edward also lives in Tucson, and the event we were at was up in Bullhead City. It's like the farthest north you can be in Arizona without being in another state. So what the crazy thing was is that Casca, and I know now everybody knows Casca.
Right.
Casca took off his lion medallion and was like, "Here, you have to have a lion medallion on the day that you're made a lion," and gave me this lion that was given to him by Count Dennis. So like this lion, this lion medallion that Casca gave me, just from Casca, it already has some crazy juju, right? And then it came from Dennis, mega juju, because he's like, old school original Atenveldt dudes. And then the cool thing is that Melissa was made a lion, and she got her lion from Morgan here in Atenveldt. But I actually passed on the lion that Casca gave to me because Edward eventually got me a lion medallion. I gave it to her because when she was leaving Atenveldt to go to the Outlands, because I just thought I should stay in that family for sure. So,
that's awesome.
But yeah, I got this cool medallion from Edward that was made by Master Iago, and it was pewter and it's heavy. It's really cool, but it just kind of it didn't really speak to me. So I don't know if you know Edward Gostomski. He's blind in his right eye. I had an ECS thing. I think he did an interview with Misty.
He did,
I don't
yeah.
recall. Okay. So
I watched it.
I took the medallion yeah. I took the medallion and I put it on my anvil, and I took a chisel and to the right eye of the lion, and I put a big cleave in it. I actually thought I cut it in half at first. I was like
Oops.
so scared that I destroyed it. But I put a giant cleave in the right eye, and I was like, yeah, this signifies that I was from Edward. I'm like, bang. So yeah, that was like I made it a little more special, at least to me. So, but yeah, that's the only thing I have. I have one lion. Everything else is interchangeable. You know, if I'm going to wear a Middle Eastern thing, I need to have a cool looking Middle Eastern chain. So same thing with shoes, Kaz.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. This is made by an artist who's also a Scythian Laurel who it's just really, really special. And I just never have thought to make, you know, I wear other time periods and other cultures, but I never thought to make something else. So I don't know. These interviews have really opened my mind to a lot of things.
Right? Oh, for sure. I would definitely agree.
So funny. Let's see, where are we? So it sounds like there a lot of your early years was kind of seeing the SCA through the lens of merchanting.
It was. So I spent a lot of years as a merchant, and the first year after I got knighted, I did what I lovingly refer to as I did the big circuit. So I got knighted. Actually, yesterday was my 17-year anniversary. So I got knighted in January. February, Windrose did Estrella War. And I never really worked Estrella very much just because it was like my home event. But I still, and even to this day, I will always go by the Windrose booth probably once to twice a day just to make sure, like, just to check in things and see what's going on and see, you know, if anybody looks like they're drowning in there, I definitely will help, like, step in and just kind of help out. You know, so I did Estrella, then we did Gulf Wars, then we did Lily's War, Penzic, and I think Great Western, and then kind of ramped up to do the whole circuit again. And that was the first year I had gotten knighted. So at one point I kind of like thought to myself, like, we set up, we show up, we set up, and I look at the same people for a week or 2 weeks across the way. And it at one point it kind of it felt a little bit like I was a carny, where it was just kind of like tearing down the show, excuse me, tearing down the show, setting the show up, tearing down the show, going to the next town, setting it up. And it really wasn't that bad, because I think some of my best memories of like the SCA were, you know, at those events, or were getting to those events. I mean, there was a time, so Dongal and I was working at Windrose, and then Dongal was like working he owned a pizza restaurant, and he was coming down on like every chance that he had and was making armor, right? And then Penzic rolled up, and Johannes was like, hey, do you want to come to Penzic with us? And Dongal was like, heck yeah. So I kind of sort of knew Dongal because he was at the shop all the time, but also, excuse me, also he, you know, I didn't know him very well. So we're driving across country together. And like the first night we're in Abilene, Texas, and we stop at this hotel called the Knights Inn, when we all got a chuckle at it. Ha ha ha, Knights Inn, great. So we go to sleep. Like Johannes gets a room, 2 beds. Like, you know, me and Dongal are the lower dudes on the totem pole, so we share a bed. It was actually just assumed. We didn't even talk about it. We just was like, Johannes is, you know, the boss. He gets his own bed. So Dongal and I, like, you know, get in bed together. We don't really know each other. We're fully clothed because it's just awkward because we don't really
like
know each other,
back.
right? Yeah. And then like at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I like realize like the bed is shaking, and I'm like, what is going on? And I look over, and Dongal's like in the fetal position because I had stolen all the blankets, and the air conditioner was on high, and he was shivering, like shaking the bed. And I was like, oh, poor little buddy. and threw blankets on him. But yeah, that was, that was kind of like the first bonding moment for me and Dongal, where like, he got hypothermia because he was the closest to the air conditioner and we put it on high when we got in. So I think that like we that was definitely our first bonding moment. But some of those trips where we're just driving across country, like we were in, actually I couldn't even tell you where we were. It might have been in Oklahoma, and I was driving the truck, and we have the trailer behind us, and like I look over the side of the road and I see like there's a cop car that's actually facing us, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And you know I haven't driven across country before. I'm not really familiar with what's going on, and we come over this little crest and traffic is stopped, like completely stopped. And I was going like 70 miles an hour with a trailer, and all of a sudden Johannes was napping in the back seat, and the second that I was like, oh shit, he sprung up and immediately was like, okay, I know what's going on. Dave was in the passenger seat, like just kind of holding on to stuff. And Johannes just kind of guided me. He's like, pump the brakes and go right, pump the brakes. Now go push left, pump the brakes, push left, push left. So I got like, I was pretty much like maybe a width of a tennis ball on either side between the barrier and the car right next to us, because, and we came to a stop and Dave looked over and he just kind of looks at me and starts laughing. Dongal's like, you should see the face on the guy in the car right next to us. And the crazy thing was, like, at the beginning of it, when Johannes like popped up from his slumber, he was like, oh man, you ate it. And I was like, that's not helping. Telling me that like I messed up, we're going 70 miles an hour and I'm about to rear end a pile of cars, not helping. And he guided me through it. And it's kind of like it's kind of like apropos, because that's kind of how Johannes always was. He just kind of let you get into the thick of it and then gently just be like, sometimes not gently, but just kind of guide you through the thick of it to like the other side where you're like, oh, okay. And to this day, like I said, Craven's like the first guy I call when I'm in the thick of it. Johannes is definitely on my list, my next call. Johannes pretty much, like I said, I wasn't ever an official apprentice, but we worked together for 10 years. I worked for his business. He did right by me at every turn, and and he's pretty much like the big brother I never had. If I ever need anything, if I like, even right now, I'm sure if I were to call him up and be like, hey, I needed some shop time, can I come by? And he lives about 4.5 hours from me, so I'm like, I could just go over and we'd go eat pie at Shooters, which is a restaurant in the town that he lives in, which has amazing pie. We go eat pie, and then we'll go to the shop and work on some projects together. So
awesome. He says that was the Oklahoma Turnpike.
Oh yeah, there you go. See, yeah, I have no doubts. I kind of remember the Oklahoma Turnpike is the one with the cool McDonald's that goes over both lanes of the turnpike. So
really?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like, we usually stop there just because it's a great stopping point. But it goes over both lanes of the turnpike, so you can literally go to McDonald's and eat a Big Mac while you watch cars drive down the turnpike, and they can like drive under you.
It's funny. So when did you become Baron? How did that come about?
Oh, that was cool. So I'd moved to Tucson. I'd gotten divorced, and then at that time when I got divorced, I left Windrose Armory. I moved to Tucson. I My grandmother had just had some pretty serious surgery, so I was kind of living with her. And then I had met my current wife, Renee. She's in the SCA just as long as I was. She's actually been in the SCA longer, I think. I knew her when I was living in Phoenix. I was I was baronial champion in the barony of Atenveldt, and she was head lady in waiting for the Baroness. So I'd kind of known her. And then I moved to Tucson, and then we got to know each other a little more. And then eventually started a relationship, all that stuff. We got married, and then on our honeymoon, we received an email from a gentleman who is actually pending a Pelican, I believe, Fergus in Tucson. He had amazing influence on the College of St. Felix down in Tucson. And he sent us an email while we were on our honeymoon that basically was like, will you please run for Baron and Baroness? And then we spent like a day of our honeymoon talking about whether or not we should do that. And
did he know that he had timed it like that?
He's a smart guy. So I'm gonna say that, yeah, he probably knew that we would have some free time, and
stuff together, and I'm
yeah,
we talk about.
Yeah. So so we spent a day talking about it, and we were like, I guess we want to do this, and so we did it, and it was interesting because when we put in our letter of intent, we were kind of and we made no bones about it. Like, we were just married, and the real reason that Renee and I got married, because we would have not gotten married and just lived together and been okay. But the real reason that Renee and I got married was because we wanted to start a family. And we're like, if we're going to start a family, it's probably a good idea to be married, so that makes taxes and medical stuff, all that stuff, just a lot easier. So that was really the reason that we got married. So when we were running for Baron and Baroness, and people would talk to us, we're like, yeah, we're going to start a family. Like, that's our main, like, we just got married. That's what we want to do. We want to start a family. And so, that's our thing. But so, I had kind of grown up in the SCA, at least in Trisketeer. And so, and Trisketeer is kind of this funny place where, like, so people will introduce themselves like, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. And then the other person would say, oh, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. What household are you in? Trisketeer is very much a household driven group. The households kind of run things. The heads of households kind of, make up the real foundation of the barony. And the other thing is that Trisketeer, I in the entire time I've been in the SCA, I don't remember a time where a peer hasn't been, either the Baron or Baroness hasn't been a peer. Sometimes both, usually both. So, we just kind of were like, we were on our honeymoon, we talked about it, we're like, yeah, let's do this. Why not? What what more weight do you want to put on a brand new marriage? Let's see if we can go ahead and knock this out. But like, again,
job in the SCA.
I definitely agree. I mean, literally the first week we were Baron and Baroness, someone came to us and was like, hey, can you have this person banished because they sexually assaulted me?
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm like, oh, well, did you go to the police? No. Well, can we make that part happen first, so that way we can have some legal grounds to, like, make this person go away? So it was really rough, right off the bat. And again, back to the things like, that I picked up from my mentors. Johannes told me that a reign, whether it be a baronial reign or a kingdom reign, it's like a piece of pottery. And the term that you serve is like being that piece of pottery being put in a kiln. And if it's made well, it'll come out stronger. And if it's made poorly, it will break. And it's very, 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 very true from what I've seen. There have been Baron and Baronesses, kings and queens that have reigned and, have come out of the backside of it and have gone the separate ways. And, there are barons and baronesses and viscounts and viscountesses and whatever that have reigned and have come out of it and have been even stronger. And I think that Renee and I came out of the backside of it even stronger. One of the things that I think was the reason that we came out of it so strong is because normally in the kingdom of Atenveldt, you serve a term of 3 years. And right about the year and a half mark, we had found out that we were pretty much plagued with some infertility issues. We've been trying to start, like I said, the reason we got married was we wanted to start a family. And so there was testing and all of this other stuff that had gone on. And at that point, we had pretty much decided, like, being adults, being people, we wanted to start a family. That was way more important than doing what we're doing. And the stress of being Baron and Baroness, and not even just the stress, the sheer calendar, the weight of the calendar, was just not going to allow us to kind of just circle our wagons and focus on starting a family. So we only ended up serving a 2-year term, and you know, sometime later we had Noah, but you know, Noah was definitely a challenge to get. I mean, I took me a surgery, took Renee a surgery, and an IVF for us to have Noah, and you know, so we're definitely blessed with that.
Yeah.
And that for us, and pretty much for like whenever we talk about anything, Noah is always the first thing. Like, how is this affecting Noah? How will this affect Noah? How is this good for Noah? Is this good for Noah? And then, so that was pretty much the same thing with our journey for being when we were Baron and Baroness. So we cut it short a year so that we could really focus on overcoming infertility, and we eventually did, which was awesome. So.
And that's as it should be. Life should always come first. And that fertility.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people that were not. There were a lot of people that were not happy about it. I mean, you know, they were like, "Oh, well, you have a commitment," and yeah, that's great. But you know what? This is my hobby, and as much as I'm committed to this hobby, and believe me, I am. You know, like that is a hobby, and I love the people in it. I love the things that I do in it. But you know, at the end of the day, I want to bring another human into this world, and I want to make sure that that human is a good human, and I'm going to focus on that. And you know, there were some people that were not cool about it, and you know, those people really don't mean anything to me. The people that I had support from, and the people that my wife and I had a lot of support from, those are the people that are our family, and those are the people that really matter to us.
The voice in my head is going, "Fuck those people." Sorry.
Exactly. That's exactly right, and that has probably been said. That had been said at the time.
Yeah. I was seneschal of our local barony when I got pregnant with our second child, and I was 40, and we didn't think we were going to be able to have another one, and boom, it happened, and I was like, I got priorities. I've got a geriatric pregnancy going on. I gotta, you know, I'm out, and I had some really shitty comments. You know, you should never have done this, and it's like, come on, you know. So I get it. Yeah, and I mean, you made the right choice.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the funny thing is that my wife is a pelican, and a well-deserved pelican. She serves all the time, and I have yet to complete a warrant. I've been Baron, and I dipped out early. I was Kingdom Emergency Earl Marshal of Atenveldt, you know, and I didn't put in to be the actual Earl Marshal because I had no desire to do that. I ran one Estrella, and I was like, this sucks. I want to actually like have fun at Estrella. So yeah, so I mean, I was just most recently I was baronial seneschal at the barony of Triscothere, and that was going along really well. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh, I'm going to the Outlands later. You know, and I love the Baron and Baroness that I left. Like, I was like, if you guys run for Baron and Baroness, I'll be your seneschal. I'm cool with it. The current Baroness, Thera of Triscothere, she was our seneschal when we were Baron and Baroness. So I'm like, I'm down with returning this favor. But yeah, and she was totally cool. She's like, I understand you're out. Well, I am. I love you. If you need anything, hit me up.
I think that the SCA does people who do service a big disservice. Oh, are you freezing again? I don't know if I should keep talking or wait. There we go. I can see you.
All right. Whew. Oh, maybe. I'm here. I promise I didn't go anywhere.
I think that we do a disservice to people who do service in the SCA by requiring them to carry on, even if they're having life circumstances that really it would be better if they stepped away. And I think it's the more honorable thing to do to say, hey, this is not for me, I'm out. I think, and make sure that you make the transition clean. I think that's the better thing to do than to stay in a position that is not serving you and that you're not able to serve well anymore. I don't know how much of that you've heard. Oh, I can see you. See, do you want to try taking your camera offline and just doing voice for a while?
Yeah, we can do that. I'm good with that. Let's see.
If that'll work.
Who's-
Although now I'm getting it. There you go. Okay, can you hear me? No. Okay. He's making a new drink. Yeah, that's what he's doing. There we go. Should we try to take a look at some photos and see if that works?
Yeah,
let's do that. Okay. All right. So this is the first picture.
Oof. Yeah. So Mr. Sigurd does these cool placards for all the crown tournaments. Pretty much, I think, since she's been playing. And this one happened to be like the old school. I think this was for the 100th crown of Atenveldt. And she wanted to get the
early pictures of people. So technology is awesome, and I'm talking to myself right now. Okay, I can hear you for a second. You want to try? I feel like I should start saying Bueller. Bueller.
There you go. It goes with my name.
Yeah.
So when I just, yeah, well, I mean, when I decided that, so when we moved to a new kingdom, I was like, the whole name thing has always been an issue for me. So, but I decided that I wanted to start over and change up. So Duke Bela, who is currently king of the Outlands, is a good buddy of mine. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about changing the name. So I'm going to throw some names by you, because he has this really great ability to be like, nope, don't pick that name because it rhymes with this, or it sounds like that, or it's the you know, you don't want to be known as like, you know, this for the rest of your life. So I threw some stuff at him, and he kind of came back and was like, don't do that one, don't do that one. And then finally I was like, how about Faris? And he was like, Bueller. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Let's go with Faris. And he's like, as long as you're good. He's like, every time I'm fighting you, I'm going to be like, I'll save you, Faris. I'm like, okay, that'll work. So I'm good with it.
My sister does the same thing. My first name was Ifa, and when we were at Penzic, Andre, what's his STA name? He's a Duke now. He's an armorer.
On Ice Falcon?
Ice Falcon.
Yeah.
Said, "Oh, I farted," and so
oh man,
me for forever. So I had to change my name.
Yep.
And my sister's like, "That's not a good choice. All I'm gonna do is look at you and say I'm so sexy," and I'm like, "Oh, come on."
That works. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, it's better
than I farted. For sure.
Oh, here we are. So this is early you. This is like when you first started.
That's probably 97. And that's at Outlands Midwinter. I went to the event with a couple of friends. We drove out. It's my first out of kingdom event. And I actually fell in love with Albuquerque pretty much on that trip. It took me all this time to get here. That's at a Southern Crusades. We had this great site in Winkleman, Arizona. And that is right there in the middle with the orange sleeves. That is Brian the Pious. I actually think I talked to him today. He said you're going to be doing an interview with him because he is now Count Sir Master Brian the Pious. So, and then right next to me, my other squire, Oslaf, who is now Count Master Sir Oslaf, Master of the Pelican. Way in the back, actually, if you see with the little white tunic with the cross, that's Duke Morgan, who currently lives in Antier. This is when we were all much younger.
Babies. He's rocking some sweatpants and some
heck yeah
kind of boot action there. You, however, have on some nice
Those are my Bohemian thigh-high boots. Oh. And I mean, those are amazing boots. I fought in them. I went to events in them. And I mean, they're super comfortable. Why change it up? So this is at a Warlord tournament. Those gauntlets that I'm wearing were made by Master Mikolaj. And the helmet that I'm wearing is made by Master Richard of Not Wolf Armory. So I was already a knight in this picture, so I was working at Windrose. So, but that helmet, that Morion, so my first Astray, I wasn't able to fight. I hadn't got my helmet worked out yet. And so I watched everything. I lent out all the rest of my other pieces of armor to my buddies, and I watched everything. And I saw this dude come off the field with this helmet that was basically like a Spanish Morion Cabasset kind of thing. That had red leather instead of brown, like that one. And I was like, oh, that's the helmet I want. That was like my dream helmet. But I was brand new to the SCA and I had no idea who that dude was, and I didn't have the guts to go up and be like, hey, I love your stuff, who made it, whatever. And then years later, I found out that the helmet actually belonged to Duke Martino, and he was in the Outlands at that time, and then moved to Callantier. But I was like, hey man, I really love the helmet. I want to get one. And he's like, well, just make one. You're an armorer. And I was like, yeah, no. I want to know who made it. And so come to find out, Richard made it, and so I ordered one because I was just like, this was always my dream helmet in the SCA. So, my first helmet that I ever loved. So I was like, I want that helmet. So he made it for me, and he, I think, said up until recently it was the biggest helmet he ever made because, like I said, I have a giant head. But yeah, so that Morion is definitely one of the cooler pieces of armor that I own. And I think as an armorer, it's cooler to own other people's stuff than it is to own your own. So, and that, like those gauntlets and that helmet are definitely two really cool pieces of armor that I've owned in my time in the SCA.
I love this.
Ooh. So this was like my probably third or fourth Penzic with Dongal. So the guy hosing us off is Baron Sir Sean. He was Baron of Turiskathir at the time. So this is a particular Penzic that we ended up getting super duper flooded in the section that we were in Atenveldt. And then Dongal and I had just helped, we basically pushed a car up the hill that was in front of our camp and fell in the mud. And we did mud angels once we were in the mud, you know, because we were already dirty. And
Embrace it.
at that time, yeah, I might as well just go with it. But the story goes that Dongal and I then angered the rain gods by doing mud angels. And then the rain gods essentially flooded all of Atenveldt camp that night because it didn't stop raining the entire time. But yeah, this is kind of like probably like the third trip that Dongal and I had gone to Penzic together, and was I can tell by the cool fighting boots that we're wearing, like I'm talking about engineer boots. There you go. So I can tell by the engineer boots that this is probably one of the few times that Dongal and I actually got to fight together the same day on the field together, because when we would go with to events with Windrose, like he would fight one day and then I would work, and then I would have the next day off to go fight and he would work. So we almost never got to fight together. I think one time we got to fight together, and then one time later when we were both knights we got to fight together.
Wow. I think I was wearing UGG boots during this period of time, so I really can't diss the engineer boots.
Sean, though, look at Sean. He's rocking some cool Bohemian boots.
Yeah.
So.
And then we have some.
Yeah, some armor. So this actually is a 4-panel Roos helm. Dongal pretty much worked the pattern out so that it was foolproof. I made this one in. Actually, I made this one in his shop after he had started up a seer. When I was living in Phoenix, he allowed me to kind of come in and noodle around whenever I wanted. And I made this helmet for a guy in Atenveldt, and I traded him 2 Viking boxes for this helmet. And this is kind of when Dongal really got this pattern worked down so that it was almost foolproof. I think he actually gets the pieces lasered out now because they're like, it's so dialed in. And then this is kind of like when the blackening of stainless steel became like the super cool thing that everybody wanted to do. Dongal kind of like pushed it forward and embraced it. So
Awesome.
yeah. This is a side view of that. This is kind of like one of the little things that I guess is kind of my trademark, where I do like little things that kind of make it more personal. So he was the guy that Sir Stephen, who got this helmet, was, like I said, from Atenveldt, and he fights with this shield that kind of looked like Captain America, but with the chaos symbol on it, which is very similar to the Atenveldt carbuncle. So I was like, I'm gonna just do this kind of thing. I think that the cool thing about like a lot of the commissions, and I don't even take commissions anymore, but a lot of the projects that I do is basically like, I'm going to build you a helmet, and if you like it, cool. If not, then I'll just sell it to somebody else. But like, I don't, even now, I don't really sell armor. I make it because I want to make it. If the project's cool, I'm going to take it on and do it. And this was just kind of a thing where I want to make this dude a helmet. I had made a helmet for this guy, so Steven. I'd made a helmet for the shop, and he bought it one Penzic, and then like 10 years later, he's like, hey, can you do me another helmet? I really loved your work. So I was like, yeah, I'll do you something. We'll do a trade because I don't do stuff for money anymore, and I'm just going to build you what I want to build. So tell me kind of what you want, and then like give me the freedom. And I think, it's kind of like when I go get a tattoo. Like, I have an idea, and then I want you to kind of make that idea a real thing. And I usually get the best tattoos and the best work out of artists when that happens. And it's kind of the same way. I feel like if I could spread my wings on a project, you might get more than really what you wanted.
Yeah, you get more of the artist's passion,
yeah,
and soul in the work. instead of just a regurgitation.
So this is a pair of, this is a roughed out 14th century greaves that I made when I was working at Windrose. This is kind of my first foray into, Johannes had picked up an English wheel, and I was kind of trying to figure it out. And I believe I did this as a trade for a banner. But yeah, because like those lines on it are just kind of me like trying to figure out like, this is where the wheel goes to make the curvy bits. And so yeah,
I love
of,
that kind of process, the insight to your process, though. It's cool.
yeah, like, so I can tell by looking at this, like the right down the middle is a very hard line. So I used a industrial brake on that. So I basically used a big industrial tool to put that crease down, and then I took the pieces, I took the piece and then rolled it in an English wheel, and kind of at that point, I didn't really know what I was doing and with an English wheel. I'm still not super familiar. So I just kind of rolled it through and like adjusted the pressure until I kind of got what I was looking for. Oh, this is cool. So I made this boss. I believe it's, I know it's mild steel. I believe the front of it is 12 gauge, and then the panel, the rest of it is 14 gauge. I made this boss as a collaboration for a shield that was actually given as a prize at Sport of Kings. So I made the boss, Sir Kaz made the shield, and then Duke Aaron painted the shield, and it was given out as a prize. I know how hard like a lot of dudes on tier hit, so I was like, I'm gonna make that top of that thing really heavy duty, put some flutes in it, but the shield, the lion that Duke Aaron painted on the shield is like super duper badass, and then Kaz made the blank and then like stitched on the rawhide edge. It was probably one of the cooler collaborations that I was able to take part in.
So this shield is in my garage.
That's awesome. That's sweet. Your husband won, what was it, a chivalry prize or?
I think it was a chivalry prize. And the other weird thing that just happened is just before this photo popped up, Cass said, show a pic of the shield that Faris collaborated on for Sport of Kings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Like I said, Kaz did, like, Kaz still does like some of the coolest wood shields out there. And then Duke Aaron is like an amazing, amazing artist. And so yeah, it was like an honor to be able to like kind of knock something out. And especially because like Sport of Kings is like the coolest of cool events that, I've never been able to get to in all the years and all the traveling that I've done. I've never traveled up north that far.
Come visit.
Planned. It's kind of in the early stages of planning for this year. So we'll see what happens. Maybe cool. I can bring another prize.
Oh, well, that would be cool. But you don't have to. Just bring yourself and your family.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about going, and then so SCA events in my mind always kind of correlate to a road trip. Mm-hmm. And then Misty was like, why would you do that? Just fly. And I was like, oh, wow. You know what? I do know enough people where I could probably get hooked up. So yep. Yeah, my wife and I are like, yeah, let's fly. So that's, like I said, it's in the early stages.
Yeah, that we do it's a whole production, Sport of Kings. We get all the extra tents together, we get all the extra bedding together, and we house as many people as we can. So
that's awesome.
And somebody usually drives shuttle between the airport and site. I've done that a few times. So it's fun.
I just got to convince my wife that it's a good idea.
I'll work on her.
Good. Make my job a little bit easier. Awesome. This cornet was done for now Duke Walrick of the Outlands. This is when he reigned as king in Atenveldt, and actually he was the king that invested him and Cecilia were the king and queen that invested Renee and I as Baron and Baroness, and this was the county cornet. So I did probably 80% of the work on this. That stippling that is done there is done by my wife. She's way more patient than I am. But that's acid etched brass, and it's basically a ferric chloride acid etch on to brass. And we probably, at the time, I probably resisted with, I'd probably say Sharpie or acrylic paint pen. Just makes a great resist for for acid etching.
I haven't acid etched in a really long time, and I think I used like a tar for resist back when.
Yeah, so yeah, they definitely used a tar. So that was my first kind of foray into etching, was actually for printmaking class, and they used a tar. Then you just kind of spread it onto the zinc plates and then scribe into it. This is using a paint pen is cleaner and way easier, and you can get it knocked out in an afternoon. You don't have to wait for the tar to stuff to dry, and
That
yeah, it's
stuff
a
was
nightmare.
nasty.
Yeah, for sure. So this helmet I made while I was working at Windrose. I would, I believe, actually also offered up either this helmet or one exactly like it as a prize for a cancer tournament. So a lot of armor doesn't actually have names, like, like, yeah, you have a bassinet and you have a version A and you have a Norman style helmet, but after a while, like, this type of helmet could be called a great helm. But if Johannes and I and Dongal were talking and we were like, I want to build a great helm, it could be one of 10 different types of great helm. So we would give things names. Like this particular helmet would be called a Conroy, because the Norman knights who eventually adopted this particular style of helmet, would charge together, quote unquote, boot to boot in what they called a Conroy. So we would just kind of give things names because it would just give us a language to talk about. When I would be like, I'm gonna build a Conroy helmet, instead of saying I'm gonna build a great helm, and then the next question inevitably is like, what kind of great helm? And then I'm gonna build this one I'm gonna build a Conroy. Yeah, we all know what that means. So there you go. And on this particular one, that bend at the top was done by hand, over a stake. And then while I was buffing it, I buffed it and got it so hot that I got like a burn that I probably should have went to the hospital and got treated, but I don't really do that. I mean, when you're working for a guy who's a sole proprietor, and you're not going to run off to the hospital because you got a burn on your arm, because he doesn't have insurance, and I'm not going to take the day off of work. And so when I have my shop open, I have sometimes we'll have like a skateboard that's broken and without wheels, and I tell people like, oh, so you can come and work in my shop, but if you hurt yourself, I'm going to drag you onto the street and throw the skateboard out there and say that you hurt yourself skateboarding by my house, because I'm not going to deal with insurance. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I still have a scar from that particular helmet.
Work at your own risk.
Absolutely. So I did this. This is another piece that I did. This was eventually put onto a breastplate that I didn't make, but it was. This is this guy Lyons, Andrew Lyons. It's his heraldry, and it's this weird counterchanged thing. I don't know what that particular charge is called, or the particular field division is called, but it's another acid etch piece where I probably resisted with paint pen, and then added it to his breastplate.
Super cool.
Yeah, so this technique was taught to me by Johannes, who says that everybody he teaches does it way better than him. I was given pointers on how to do it better than him by Sir Mikolaj, who was also his apprentice. So yeah, Mikolaj does amazing. Ryanie, yeah, that's the looks like fire.
It does. It's actually kind of a cool place.
Anyway, sorry. Ooh, this Carnet. So my sister-in-law, who's one of my best friends, Countess Mariana, was getting laureled, and she had always wanted this embattlement style. Basically, it's like the bottom of a spade, like on a playing card, or the bottom of a club on a playing card. Her heraldry is this heart with wings. My wife named this coronet the Coronet of Cuss. I probably broke a gross of jeweler's saw blades cutting this out, because I, like an idiot, cut it out of 14 gauge brass. Yeah, so it's super heavy. And then like I backed it with like probably 20 gauge stainless steel, and it's got all those rivets on it. And I did a little etch work here and there, but the sides of it has her chaplet. So this is basically her chaplet for when she got laureled. But yeah, I don't know why I cut it out. I did it out of 14 gauge. Actually, that's not true. I know why. I'm an armorer at heart, so everything has to stand up to things. So like most of the cornets and stuff I make, you can throw them in your armor bag or your luggage and like throw them on the plane, and you're not going to worry about them getting jacked up. That's kind of my thing. So yeah, I made this out of 14 gauge. She can't wear it for very long because it weighs a ton. Um, but yeah, so but the coronet of cuss is infamous in my family.
That's why I made mine out of 32 gauge, like foil.
Yeah, I mean, on
feel
hindsight. So this helmet is based off of an actual archaeological find. I believe 4th century Roman helmet found in Egypt in Dara Medina. This was kind of my style, and this was kind of like the first thing that Johannes really let me spread my wings on and develop and see to fruition. I made the first one, on the clock working for him. The helmet for that I made as my masterwork when I got offered Laurel to that I gave to Duke Edward is very similar to this. But yeah, this is basically it's a 6-panel Spangen helm. The panels on there are 18 gauge stainless steel. They're just for decoration. They're over the top of a 14 gauge top. But this is really kind of like the first time that Johannes was like, "Oh, you want to make this helmet out of this book? Go!" And he just kind of let me like spread my wings and fly. And for some reason, and it's somewhat appropriate on this particular helmet, but I've always been kind of fascinated with it, the horse tails on the helmets. And I think it's because I've always been fascinated with a lot of the armor that comes out of Montier, especially like the early stuff where everybody's wearing horse tails on the back of their helmets. It's like, yeah, it's kind of always, I even have it on like the back of like a lot of my helmets when I was a squire and early in my knighthood. This was like super inspired by a lot of stuff that came out of there. And the cool thing was like nobody ever knew anyone. Nobody in Atenveldt really ever knew anyone or anything about Antier. So I could be like the cool guy and steal a bunch of stuff, ideas from you guys.
That's awesome. So you are not the first person that's mentioned a masterwork. Is that a tradition in Atenveldt for when you are Laurel, you do a masterwork and present?
A lot of the Laurels are, yeah. And it's not. I think that it hadn't been done a lot. I mean, I wasn't definitely the first person to do one, but it was kind of it became really popular when I was offered. And Duke Edward on second reign had a very Viking themed reign, and he put a gaze upon me to make a helmet that was worthy of a king. And I made this helmet. He wanted a helmet for me anyway, and it's not like, there was a point where I was like, "Hey man, we have to talk about like how much you're going to pay for this helmet, because like I'm not giving you a helmet for free. I'm not buying my way into the Laurel, because that's not how it's going to work for me." And he was like, "Oh no, absolutely not." I'm like, "So you're going to pay fair market price? Johannes is going to determine that, and my labor is going to be free." So that's kind of how that actually went down. But it was pretty much like a very popular thing, and continues to be. I don't think every Laurel in the Kingdom of Atenveldt does it, but the ones that stick out in my head definitely do. I know that Yanka made a chatelaine, and I believe that Duke Ivan made a pair of shoes. So it's just kind of something that says like, I've arrived.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like the first work that I did at a master level.
Interesting. I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I want to dive a little deeper into that. That's really interesting. I did like a rush kind of master outfit for my Laureling, but it wasn't. And I'm just starting to do what I consider masterworks. So I find that concept really fascinating. Valora asked a question. She wanted to know if it was difficult adjusting after earning two peerages close together. How close were your knighthood and your laurel?
I believe it was 15 months.
Wow. And then were you
It's
also
15
lion?
months or 18 months.
Were you also
And
lion
then,
at the same time?
yeah,
Holy cow.
So yeah, I was laureled at the beginning of Edward's second reign, and then I was given a lion at the end of that reign. So yeah, it was a difficult adjusting. I had a lot of people around to keep me in check. Johannes, Mikolaj, even Dangal. Dangal was, Dangal and I were kind of like, I got knighted, and then, when I was working at Windrose, and then Dangal became my foster, and then I got Laurel the day he got knighted, or the day after he got knighted, or the day before. Actually, I'm sorry, but and Dangal beat me as far as like this is the second peerage by like 3 months. And then Dungal's like a triple peer now. But as far as like, adjustment, my friends kept me in check. They definitely, and they definitely made sure Duke Arius and even my sister-in-law and my now wife, and Duke Aaron for sure, Craven especially. Those guys always were like, hey man, your head's a little big. Do a double peer, big whoop, especially like Craven. Craven's amazing at that. He'd be like, oh yeah, 2 peerages, that's great. How many crowns have you won?
Oh.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, exactly. So I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're Grace.
Thank
So,
you very much for that.
yeah, my friends are great. They're awesome at keeping me in check. So there was really not a whole lot of you know time where I needed to like adjust.
Interesting.
But yeah, back to the masterwork thing. I mean, I definitely think that that thing, the helmet that I made for Edward, was probably at master level, but I've made things that are 1,000 times, in my personal opinion, 1,000 times better. And when I say 1,000 times better, I don't necessarily mean like the quality of it. It's just like, oh, this went together so much easier and with so much less stress than that did. So kind of like getting comfortable in the saddle of being a master of laurel, and not stressing out. Like, I mean, there was a point where I was doing some chisel work on Duke Edward's helmet, and my hands were shaking, like literally shaking like that. And my buddy Roland, who is now also, I think he lives in Ontario in Idaho, he was like, all right, let's like just take a break, calm down, and then now I just like haphazardly, I'm like, I'm gonna chisel this thing in, bang, 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 bang. Oh, it's like crap. I'll grind it out. All right, let's try again. There's so much less stress at that point. So I think like I said, I've done much better work, but I don't necessarily I just don't sweat it as much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for years after I got laurels, I just was okay. Is it night
Hang
time?
on for 1 second. Yeah, it's night time.
I know.
Hugs and kisses.
Yeah,
Can you say hi?
hi.
Can I have
Hi.
hugs? Love you. Kisses. All right. Good night. Good night.
Come on.
Thank you.
So awesome.
That's like probably the best part of my day every day. So
You can't miss that. It's important.
no.
So Laura had a second part of her question. How do you juggle students between art students and squires?
So I call them all students. I mean, I have squires and they're squires. I have apprentices. I don't actually currently have any apprentices, but the apprentices, but all of them are students, right? And I started doing that pretty early on, calling them all students because they really are just students. For me, I don't take student. So I've had 2 apprentices. One has reached peerage. She had 0 interest in doing metal work. and that's kind of how I juggle that. As far as like juggling it with my art, yeah, none of my apprentices do my art. I can teach you how to be a peer. I can teach you how to be, you know, how to be a peer of the realm and all of that. But you know, teaching my particular art, I personally am not wonderful at that. You know, I've tried to do work on some projects with my wife, and we kind of butt heads, and that could be that could be because she's my wife, but it also, you know, could be that I'm not the greatest teacher as far as teaching my art. But I can definitely encourage and point in the right direction. Um, my one apprentice who got laureled, Mistress Ima, um, she's a double peer now. Actually, that's kind of, I think, I don't really want to. I don't enjoy tooting my own horn very much. But in this circumstance, all of the peers that I've graduated are double peers except for one, and he will, when things open back up and he's able to display his art on a more regular basis, I'm sure that that will happen. So I kind of feel like um, as a peer, I make peers, not necessarily laurels or not necessarily knights. Um, I mean, I think it's my job to show someone how to be peer-like and to show them that path. And if they want to do art, then they can do art. And if they want to fight, then they can fight. So, but showing somebody how to be a peer and finding that piece of clay that you can mold, or at least kind of help mold and polish into something. Um, I've been really lucky. I've had I've had four squires become knights. I've had an apprentice become a laurel, and again, like I said, they've all gone on. Dungal's actually shadowed me now. He's a triple peer and a lion of Atenveldt. So I mean, you know, I think that I don't necessarily make knights, and I don't necessarily make laurels. I make peers, and I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that I can give back to society, is finding those people and polishing them and guiding them on their path. So as far as juggling them, um, you know, juggling squires is easy. We want to fight, and we want to drink, and we'll go do all those things together. Juggling apprentices is a little more difficult, and especially you know, apprentices that don't do your art. You know, it's really about encouraging. Ima was a she was not one that wanted to compete, and in Atenveldt, a lot of the laurels are very focused on whether or not those people compete, and whether or not a candidate is competing and competing. And Ima really just, that wasn't her bag. She knew it, which is to her credit. You know, she didn't really take criticism very well, and she knew it. And she's like, I don't want to put myself out there because I'm just going to be hurt, and then I'm going to be angry, and then I'm not going to like those people, and then I'm not going to want to play.
Yeah,
So, you know, and I
that's
think
smart.
the key to being, yeah, think the key to being a good peer is then to find out, you know, ways that you can support that person and ways around that. So with Ima, I was like, well, why don't you judge? And in Adenvelt, there's a certification process to become a judge. And then, you know, I'm like, if you don't compete, at least you can be knowledgeable of how competitions work, and you can judge, and you can still get out there, and you can still rub elbows with all the right people, and you can still show them that you're knowledgeable, you know, in your art form. So that was the path that, you know, she wanted to go down, and that was the path that I guided her down. I mean, you know, we just found like, here's a stumbling block. Well, let's work together to find something that, you know, a way to overcome that, that's going to put you in the best light. And so that's what she did. And she's, to this day, I don't think she's competed. She's displayed a bunch. She's an amazing seamstress. She can talk your ear off about sex and clothing. One of the weirdest conversations that I ever had with her is about how like Saxon underwear didn't have a crotch. I mean, we were talking about that, like that for like 20 minutes in front of a bunch of people who are just like, is this awkward? I don't know if this is awkward. It's awkward, right? Crotchless underwear. I'm like, well, it's medieval. Whether it's awkward or not, we're talking about it. So,
We're there.
but yeah, I mean, um, but another aspect of that is, to more answer Valora's question is, I have a squire who got knighted and who's a laurel and is a count. And even he has asked me, like, how come you never won a crown? I was like, well, I was busy making peers. So that is difficult to juggle. And it can be, hard, when I'm focused on those people and seeing them reach their goals and being just as happy for them when they reach their goals as I am when I reach my goal. It's easy for me, as for who I am, to just put what I want to do on the back burner and basically be like, all right, I'm going to push you up this hill. And, but in the end, I might not be Duke whatever, but I have a legacy of amazing peers and lines, in my lineage that I can look back on and be like, well, at least I helped these people maintain, attain their goals. And so that's really important. But if I was, I guess, a little more selfish, might be a Duke.
I have a whole
personally.
Soapbox about that, and I think there's a certain, and this always gets me in trouble, and I probably shouldn't say anything, but I think there's a certain amount of hubris that you have to have to win crown and to take that path. There's just a certain amount of hubris that you have to have. And
I don't disagree.
Not everybody has it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So I'm going to leave it at that.
That's okay. That's good. That's a good place to leave it.
Mineko would like you to explain your thoughts on being the king's dog. He says it's a speech that you give when you take students.
It is. So before I changed my persona and became Faris, I was Tiernan the Hound. And so Rylick was my first knight, and his knight was Theo of Meichenwood, who was an old-timey player in the Kingdom of the Outlands, and then moved to Atenveldt. And Theo would always say that he was the king's dog. And there was one time when I was knighted, and I was pretty young. I had kind of gotten into an argument with one of the older knights about council. The council was basically like, I was like, if you don't show up, then you don't have a right to be heard. Again, I was a very young knight, and very much thought very highly of myself, especially when I was comparing myself to this older knight who didn't show up to circles and thought that his opinion should hold as much weight as the rest of us. In hindsight, as an older knight, now, I definitely probably would have punched my former self in the face for being such a bold ass. But so at one point in this argument, I was like, well, I'm the king's dog. I'm going to do what the king wants me to do. And if the king wants me to show up to a circle, I'm going to be there no matter what, because I'm the king's dog. So there's that part of my that story that kind of led me to being the hound. Another story that led me to being the hound, and the story that kind of happened right after I got knighted, is I went to Lily's War, and Duke Loki from the Brotherhood was at Lily's War, and I was literally like 6 months a night, and I walk out of my tent running to the bathroom, and Loke saw me and he looked at me and he was like, oh, dog without his chain. And I left to go to the crib without a chain on. And I mean, like, literally just like jumped out of my tent to go to the bathroom before I was fighting, right? It shouldn't have really been a big deal,
right?
But the fact that he, who was kind of a big deal to me and in the Atenveldt and in the Outlands, saw and said it. And at that time, I'm not sure if he was knighted at that time, because at one point he had that privilege revoked. So I was just like, I literally had to pee so bad, but I stopped, turned around, went back to my tent. I, and I might have even been just wearing a t-shirt and like pants and like my fighting pants. I went and my belt, and I like put my chain on and went to the bathroom. And a dog shouldn't be without his leash, and that kind of was another thing. And then there was another story at Penzic where Countess Mariana told me to sick somebody and like a dog, and so like all these things kind of balled up into me being a dog. And especially with like where I came from, being the Theo talking about being the king's dog. So I always kind of see myself as the king's dog. Even Faris Mualadin Kaliba Malik means Faris, the Mualadin. Mualadin is kind of a derogatory word for half breed, someone who is either Christian or Muslim, and living the other faith. And then Khalib al Malik is dog of the king. So even now, I kind of take that over into my new persona. But so I always kind of view myself as the dog of the king. The king, I'm a bullet to be expended at the king's whim. And when I take squires, I always tell them like, I am the king's dog, and you will be my dog. And I ask them if they wish to continue to be my dog, if they wish to be my dog. So it's kind of like a lineage thing, but it's also kind of like a cool hip hop thing where like, you're my dog, so it speaks to me on many levels.
I didn't make that connection until you said that, but that's awesome. And it's a cool analogy kind of for fealty too.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that it's so it's the easiest way to kind of for squires, whether they've been playing the SCA for 10 years or 10 minutes, it's really the easiest way for them to understand, like, this is the bond that we're going to have. Like, the big guy, he holds my leash and I'm going to hold yours. And, so that's really kind of the dumbed down version that stick jocks can really understand. Yeah.
I love that. Wow. Huh. Miniko says it's dope to hear it.
See?
Yeah.
Like I said, it speaks to me on many levels.
I love it. Okay, so should we go back and finish these photos out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right, so we talked about that one. And then this is the back of that other.
So there you can see the coronet of Cuss. You can kind of see the chaplet part of it. It's etched in, and in hindsight, I should have chiseled it in. I've always told myself that I'll eventually remake this thing, but I don't know. I don't know if I have it in me. And who knows? She might become a duchess someday, so I'll just remake that. I'm like, make it all in one big swoop and redo a whole new coronet for her.
Something fresh and new.
Yeah. So this is cool. This is something that I made when I was working at Windrose. It's a Roman cavalry sometime around like the 4th, 5th, actually maybe 6th century. When I started working for Johannes was very much into 15th, 16th century stuff. And then my love for like early period stuff really, and my enthusiasm really kind of pushed the whole view of what we were doing at the shop into something that I was like excited about. So, this was something like one of the earlier ones that we did together that has the cool quote unquote beaver tail style in the back there. And this is a mild steel helmet with the brass nasal. But yeah, this is kind of like I said, when I started, Johannes was making amazing Bergenets and amazing Salés and stuff like that, and he had actually really pushed 14th century stuff in the SCA as well. But my love wasn't really there, and he noticed that, and then like kind of as a business, we kind of pivoted and really focused on some of the earlier period stuff that I really love to do, and was really like that he could just kind of be like, okay, you love this stuff, let's go, and I was really, it made me really feel like I was part of the business and not just an employee.
That's really cool.
This is the counterpart, I guess, to the Duke Walrick coronet. This is for Mistress Cecilia. She's the Laurel at the time, so there's kind of some laurel wreaths in there. And then his little mullet, her device is the swan. So again, I probably did 85% of this. My wife helped on the artwork. She's way more patient and space and able to space out that stippling, and that just kind of that minutia makes me insane. Oh yeah, so I fought in this helmet for a while. I actually fought in this helmet for a while up until I became Baron, and then I realized like as much as I screamed commands on the field, no one could hear me because there really is like there's like 5 holes on the other side. So this is an early Crusader style helmet where they would have gone like face plates instead of an open face. So and on the nasal there is like an etched sun for Atenveldt, and then at that time I was part of the Knights of St. Michael, which is kind of a knightly household in the Kingdom of Atenveldt. But yeah, amazingly, you can see really well out of that helmet. That hard line there where the nose is, that kind of breaks in and kind of has this really kind of complex curve, compound curve. The opening sits really close to your eyes, so you can really get a good look at everything that's going on.
Wow. It just looks so claustrophobic to me. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, for sure. So this is that pair of, a lot of people can't, and to be honest, like I didn't think I could. And in fighting in that helmet, there was a couple of times where I became super claustrophobic and like had to tear it off my head. But because of the way that shape is in the eye, it really didn't feel claustrophobic. The thing that was really most claustrophobic is breathing warm air.
Yeah.
That was because you're kind of, other than that, though, I mean, being able to see and everything else was really great. This picture is kind of cool because it's so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to make a masked comment that we're all breathing warm air now.
Right, exactly. So I was doing it before it was cool. So this is basically that pair of that earlier picture of the greave. This is that pair finished. So we got that really nice kind of 14th century line that goes from the outside of the leg to the inside of the leg, and I got little divots for the ankles, which is mostly just for decoration. The yoke on there is kind of flared out, but yeah, that's kind of shows the finished product of the original idea and original piece that you showed earlier.
Just such beautiful lines.
14th century armor is all about beautiful lines. So I made this helmet at a point when I was working at Windrose, where Johannes was focusing more on getting the web page working and getting it to be like a viable sales option. So a lot of times he would just leave me in the shop alone for most of the day, if not the entire day, or sometimes days at a time. And he would call me and be like, "Are you at work?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at work." "What are you making?" I'm like, "I'm working on the stuff that we got work going on." So like he wasn't there for a couple of days, and I made this helmet, and he came back and he was like, "You made this?" I'm like, "Yeah, it just needs you to put a grill on it." And he's like, "Yeah, that's not bad." And I think that was like the first time where like I'd done something on my own where I got like a genuine, like, yeah, attaboy, where I was like walking on cloud 9 for like the rest of the week. Yeah, so But yeah, this is kind of part of like the production time where, he was like, we don't have anything specific on the docket, but we have to get stuff built up for events. So I'm going to work on the webpage so we can make this a real, like, a real viable option for sales. Oh yeah, this, we can go back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, coronet. So this is the coronet for my sister-in-law, Goddess Mariana. So yeah, I mean, she had a coronet when she got her county, and then I just kind of made something. Cool thing is like, so I've been friends with Mariana for most of the time that I've been in the SCA, and most of the time that I've been in the SCA, her and I have had this like unspoken trade going back and forth where I make her something, she makes me something, I make her something, she makes me something. To be honest, she's been one of like one of my most prevalent uses. She does 14th century stuff, which while I don't really like doing personally, I love the lines and the look of it, and so making stuff from 14th century kind of is cool to me. But I made something for, again, this is just a stainless steel coronet with her little heart with wings cut out of it, and I think I've seen her wear this more than any other coronet that she has, which is kind of cool to me. But it's, again, a piece that you can just literally throw in a piece of luggage and like check on the airplane, and it's not really going to get jacked up. It's probably 18 gauge stainless steel, and probably that chunk of brass is probably like 14 gauge. So unless they like throw it on the ground and jump on it 10 times, it's going to come out fine and you'll be able to wear it.
You could play horseshoes with it and it's still
absolutely. That's just another side of that same helmet. And there you can see, like, that's the amount of breath holes that are in there. And I fought in that for quite a few years. The coolest, and again, like the hot breath thing was really the biggest issue, but I fought in that helmet at an event in Prescott, and it started snowing, and me and Brian, when he was my squire, were fighting in this tournament, and like literally like my breath was coming out of the eye holes and out of the mouth hole, the little, like the four little like mouth holes, the breath holes you see there. Yeah, it was pretty epic. And fighting in the snow, doing most of my SCA stuff in the desert, fighting in the snow was like totally novel. But yeah, there's not a lot of airflow in there. But those little, again, and you can see that crease really hard right there under the eye. That really allows you to get good vision. But you can also see a lot of movement in the little holes right below the eye as well. It's kind of, I mean, as a fighter, you're kind of like a T-Rex. You're looking for key off movement, and that really kind of does it. Is supplies enough.
It's enough. It's got such gorgeous lines. It's just
yeah,
a beautiful piece.
Again, this is another one of the helmets that I did in production at Windrose. That coating on it is called black oxide, so the helmet itself is mild steel. And then we would take it to a third party. I think it's like, so when I was working for Johannes, we were in a shop in like legit downtown Phoenix, where like across the street was a bum who lived in like a cab over, trailer thing, and like he had like 20 bicycles, and he would like go around the neighborhood and find old bicycles and sell them. So I mean, it was literally like downtown industrial Phoenix. And I think we got these black oxide at this place called like Chavez Black Oxide. It was like, like these three dudes working out of a trailer in downtown Phoenix that just kind of like cobbled together the stuff to get it done. And they were doing some amazing plating stuff from like old cars and stuff like that.
Wow.
Which is, again, was like one of the coolest things about, excuse me, one of the coolest things about working in downtown Phoenix. You have like all the industrial complex and all those people that work every day and like do amazing stuff, and like yeah. So it was cool and like weird and scary at the same time. Like I would go to work at like 7 o'clock in the morning and like shut the door and lock it behind me just because I'm like, yeah, it's a little sketchy. So, but
Sounds
still,
like my neighborhood that we live in.
oh boy.
Not that bad.
It's amazing. Like I said, it was an amazing neighborhood because of like, all of the other businesses around there. But, when it got dark out, you didn't really want to be there. So, so this is actually the first county I ever made. It's just Brass County that is punched out. So those those embattlements, quote unquote embattlements, those are actually done with punch. So the shop that we were in Windrose in downtown Phoenix was this little corner of a giant roof flashing company. They made flashings for roofs. It was a big industrial warehouse, and they had all these cool tools that like when they would leave for the day at like 4 o'clock, like I would go in there and like mess around and check things out. And and I don't I don't think I would have gotten in trouble, but I don't think it was like the greatest thing to be doing. But so this was like a Pexto punch that could punch like a 3-inch circle into a thing. So I just punched it out and etched it up and put it together. This was for Duke Craven for after his first reign. Is the first county that I made. This is cool. So this is based off of mirror, a Roman Celtic Iron Age mirror. I had seen somebody do one on the internet, and I was like, I could probably do something like that. And I got a piece of 14 gauge stainless steel and buffed the ever loving crap out of it and got it super duper duper shiny and basically riveted a handle on it. I made a couple of these. I made one for my wife. I've made one for Countess Mariana, and then Countess Golda, when she was queen, asked if I could make a bunch of them, just so that she could give them out as special gifts. And so I actually, me and at the time my squire Demetrius, I was like, hey, the queen wants me to do a project, and you're going to help me. So I got him to help me out, and we knocked out, I think, maybe a dozen of these, just so that she could have something cool to give out as like, a special thank you. The cool thing is that they legit work. Like I've seen my wife touch up her lipstick with it. So I'm like, yeah, functional art is the thing. Yeah, this one is the one I made for my wife.
Very cool. In my culture, women always had a mirror in a pouch they carried. And at one point in time, Duke Torgel, who makes the really amazing Norse, he lived with us for a little while. More specifically, his girlfriend, who became his wife, lived with us. And he got into my Scythian books, and he made a Scythian mirror that I then bought from him. So I love mirrors. I think they're a really cool kind of persona addition to
for sure. This was just so the cool thing about working at Windrose. So like the month 2 or 3 before Penzic, it would kind of be crunch time, and we would just go to town making armor for inventory. But like Dongalin, I would always kind of stay after work on my work hours, and we would make stuff that like we just wanted to make, just to put in and have so that we would have extra inventory. So I would work an 8-hour day and make whatever Johannes had on the docket to be made, and then like I would make stuff, on the side, and then Johannes would sell it out of the booth. And this happened to be one helmet that I had made most of the helmets that I ended up selling out of Windrose, I made for myself, and then was like, I don't really like that. I'll put it for sale. It's just like shoes, I have to have a lot of things. And again, in like my regular life, I mean, I'm pretty minimal.
Yeah.
But like in the SCA, I'm like, oh, I need 10 pairs of shoes and 5 helmets because that's just the thing.
I love the decorative elements of this.
This actually was, we always had like this little competition of like what helmet would sell first at Pensick when we would show up. And I think I won that bet that year with this helmet. Some Duke in Canada bought it and then like immediately like started fighting in it at that Pensick. I was like, oh, usually somebody will buy something and take it home. And he was like, nope.
Oh, right away. Well,
right away. Yeah.
Valora has another question. She says, you have fought in a lot of different helms. Which one is your favorite?
My current one is my favorite. It's this one right here. So back when Brian was my squire, we always wanted to do these round top Norman helmets because they kind of are, they cover a lot of time period, right? So like with this helmet, I could do a 1066 persona or a 1066 kit. I could do like a super early, like I could do a Viking style with this thing. I could do a late 13th century kit too. So like this particular helmet right now, this helmet, like it's just like it's all, the rest of it is window dressing. If I wanted to wear a sideless surcoat and some greaves and some floating knee caps, cool, I'm like late 13th century. If I wanted to fight with the round shield and a tunic and some poofy pants, I'm a Viking. It literally like lends itself to so many time periods, and I'm so fickle when it comes to stuff like that. Like I was talking to my brother-in-law and I was like, I really wish I could be the guy who like has one helmet and one shield, and like that's who I am for the rest of my career. And, like I've had so many different things, I just can't. I just, right now I have like 3 shields in my garage that I'm working on just because they go with different kits. And so, but this particular helmet right now, it lends itself to such a big,
a wide range.
It's such a wide range of time periods. Like I don't really have to change it up much. It's just like I said, it's all window dressing. So I think this will keep me satisfied for a little while. It's awesome. Not really true. I already have another helmet started.
And then Nikki wants to know, what has your favorite project been to date?
Like ever? Let's see. I don't know if I've had a favorite project. Personally, I've like branched out, like because I've been in flux for a little while. I haven't had access to a shop, so I've done a ton of baking lately. I've done some, and I'm doing like these weird, like making vinegar out of like macerated mangoes just to see if I can do it. So I'm doing a lot of really random stuff right now, and I started sewing not too long ago as well. And that was something like Craven always was like, a knight should be able to sew at least a tunic so that he can provide his squires with clothing. So that's something that I've always kind of tried to push forward. But as far as like my favorite project, I don't know. I don't really have one. It's just like the next thing that I'm working on.
Whatever you're working on right now.
Yeah, I think like, so I don't have a shop right now. All my tools and everything are like packed away in my trailer. And I have a helmet that I started for Nikita that I really am excited. Like, it's probably going to be one of the first things that I finish. I have a helmet. I have sketches of a helmet that I want to do for Valora that I want to do. So it's my favorite project so far. I don't know. Brian the Pious, maybe. He's, out of all my squires, he's probably still one of my better friends. He's a really great guy. But yeah, students are definitely projects. So maybe Brian, probably my favorite project ever.
You got to be careful of saying you have a favorite squire, though. It gets you in trouble.
Well, so I used to tell Brian that Oslaf was my favorite squire, and he would be so angry about it. so angry to the core of who he was as a person, angry.
Oh,
And I'd be like, just, it's Olaf, he's the best squire ever. And, you know, he would just be like, what do you mean I was a good squire? I'm like, sorry, man, it's just Olaf. But it became just a thing after a while because I knew it got under his skin. So I'd be like, yeah, Olaf's the best squire ever.
like, oh, look, you gave me a button I can push.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to, you know, use what you can to motivate people to do the things that they need to do. And, you know, whether it's that button that they give you or something that you can, you know, you uncover and, you know, figure out, that's, you know, some people need to be motivated in specific ways. So this is another one of the 4-panel helmets that that Dongal kind of perfected the pattern of. This one I made for myself, and again, eventually sold because it just wasn't really my thing. But I fought in a crown in it, and it looked really cool. But yeah, Dongal has this pattern dialed in, and this was just something that like I wanted to see if I could make one for myself. The black and silver thing has kind of become my thing lately. Maybe has always been my thing, and I never really knew, but I've really embraced it lately. The black and silver is kind of like it's my jam. Black and white.
It's awesome.
This is kind of the beginning of that project, where you can see underneath what it looks like underneath the chainmail. The rest of it is a grill. There's me and my cool R2D2 phone. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
I noticed that. I love it.
You know what really would have set that helmet off would be a fake chin strap over the top of the chainmail, like my current helmet has. So, but that's just something that was like next level that I didn't think of. And I stole from, probably stole from Richard. That's a close up of the chaos symbol that Sir Stephen wanted on his helmet. Chiseled in. This is what we would call in the Windrow shop a proto-bassinet. So it's really early period bassinet where the point went from the top, the middle of the top of the head, where it went sloped to the back. That nasal thing in German would be called a Brech, but it's really an early style of Brech. This is kind of like, if I was going to do 14th century, I would do this helmet because one, it has a cool looking nasal. I would probably do it with chainmail. But yeah, this is definitely like, if I was going to do a bassinet and adopt the 14th century way, I would go with this helmet. Yeah, this is just another helmet that I made when I was working at Windrow's. You can see the Windrow's giant ball in the background. This is the coolest style Roman helmet, Celtic helmet that I made at Windrow's. It's funny, so this was one of the like my Penzic project helmets, and so I brought it all the way to Penzic to put it on sale, and some dude in Atenveldt ended up buying it, trucking it all the way back to Atenveldt from Penzic. This is production helmet. So this is actually very similar to the helmet that I'm working on for myself currently. So it's what, again, you know, when we just need to name things. So this was something that we call the Mediterranean style Norman. It's kind of the Phrygian Norman. A lot of this particular style of Norman was used a lot by the Normans in Sicily and in the Byzantine area. So it's just a production helmet, but you know, something that we would have knocked out in a day and thrown on the webpage for sale.
It's one of those shapes I really love.
I like that shape too. I definitely, like I said, so the first helmet I bought from Johannes was a Mediterranean Norman. The one that ended up like beginning my journey of working for Windrow's was a Mediterranean style Norman. This is a Laurel medallion. I think I made this for Connell, Sir Connell of the West, his lady, I think, so that she could stitch it onto a hat. I know Connell had asked me to make one for him. I think this is that one.
Cool.
It's just brass disc stamped in. That stamp was something that, you know, we just had around. Just, hey, I think I can use to make a laurel wreath.
Boom, it's done.
Yeah. It's chaplet. So this is one of the first chaplets, one of the early chaplets that I made. So this chaplet, I think this is the one I made for Ima. when she got offered and put in the order of the laurel. So one of the cool little tips that tricks that I figured out was these hair combs. So I just kind of like tack welded them in and made it so that, someone could wear them and not have to wear a veil or under it, or just chuck it on and not have to worry about it sliding around. So,
Kind of
and it doesn't have to be super tight, right?
right.
You can kind of just put the combs in your hair and it can just sit there. So, and that's because that's one of the things, like cornets and things that you wear on your head. If they're tight, after like 20 minutes, you're like, I gotta get this thing off my head.
Yeah.
So if you have like those little hair combs, they're made out of you can buy them on Amazon. They're made out of metal. Tack all them into something, and then like poop, put it on there, and it kind of just floats on your head, and it looks really cool, very Roman.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic innovation.
This is a ducal cornet that I made for, I believe this one is, I made a set. I think this one is the one that I made for Duke Bela, who's currently the king of the Outlands. It was, the cool thing is, so I made him this cornet. It was a surprise to him. Um, and then, I don't know, 3 years ago, he actually came to my home in Tucson, and he wanted to make a cornet. So I walked him through the steps of making a cornet. We used the leaves on his cornet as the model for the leaves on the one that he was making as a gift to somebody. And then I modified this one just a little bit. I put punch outs that kind of looked like Punisher skulls in it, because his device has a skull in it. But yeah, so it's just something, like I said, it's stainless steel and brass, so you can literally chuck it in your armor bag and be like, I'm going to Penzik, throw it in there and like not worry about it. It's that same shape. It's probably that early picture of that same helmet. This is one of the low profiles county cornets. I made a bunch of these. When people in general just want to have something, especially ladies that are like, want something that'll hold down a veil, but not be like a giant thing. So it's just stainless steel, blackened, welded together, just something that you can throw over a veil and keep it down. This is one that I made for, I actually made this for, at the time it was Countess Cecilia, who's now a Duchess. So this went from Cecilia, and then had this cool punch, and she was a Laurel. So I just punched it in there, a chaplet in there. And then, so it went from her, and then it went to Countess Mariana. And then now it's with Countess Dionysia in Atenveldt, because she's also a Laurel and a Countess. So, but it's kind of like this weird Borg, like Star Trekky looking laurel wreath thing, because the lines are so sharp and not very natural. But I thought it was kind of cool.
Yes.
Actually, so this is the mirror that I made for Mariana. Mariana's a laurel. I use the same punch. She wears it with some of her Viking stuff, and instead of wearing a laurel medallion, she'll wear this thing.
Nice.
But it's the same punch. So, it just kind of hangs it off of her Viking tortoise brooches, and, is able to rock a laurel wreath in a different way.
Stealth laurel.
Yep. This is the similar to the one that I made for Sport of Kings. I made this for Sir Connell of the West. He actually just got this put on a shield and posted some pictures of it. Duke Thorfinn painted. It's on like this little tiny looking buckler thing. It looks sweet. Like Thorfinn did an amazing job painting the buckler. And then he's got this little golden heart as part of his heraldry. So same kind of thing.
Somebody's asking if you've done anything Italian.
I don't necessarily think I would say I did anything specifically Italian. I mean, this is a Roman diadem, so it's kind of Italian, I guess. This is a Roman diadem that I did for my wife. It's to kind of, so she could sport a baronial looking thing, as well as something to go with her Roman outfits that she wears. But I don't think I've done anything necessarily specifically that I would say is Italian. This is a cornet that I made for this one. I made a set of these cornets. I think this one was for Frambald, but this is another kind of like a stylish thing that is kind of my thing with two metals together, you know, and just kind of copying the same lines and being two in one. Um, Actually, I was wrong. I can tell by the rivets. This one went to Countess Asa, who was um, before she became Countess Asa. This is when she had a court barony, and she's from the West, and that was in Antir.
Yep. She's in that town.
Yep. This is the finished product from that earlier four panel for Sir Stephen and Ethelmark. The cool thing about this type of helmet is like the brow that you can do on it. Like you can, Don Gall does. You saw in the other one that I did for myself. That's black and silver.
Right.
Excuse me. You know, but that kind of gives you a lot of freedom as far as the decoration and where you can go with the decorations. This particular one, I just kind of broke it up and did it all as individual pieces. You can do it all as one piece and have it look more like a trident, which is super cool too. But yeah, this is just that finished piece. Oh, this is a cool piece. So stainless, copper, and actually horn. The ducal leaves are made out of horn. I made this for Duke Aaron as a trade. When I stepped down as Baron, I wanted to give away cups as like thank yous to specific people. So he made me like a bunch of cups, and I made this cornet. It's the only time I ever worked in horn. I got some guidance from Duke Laharic, who's done some cool stuff with horn, and but yeah.
How many sets of ducal leaves did you break trying to rivet those on
there? So because the copper rivets, I didn't break any. The copper rivets are super duper soft, and so that you don't have to really worry too much about over riveting. But I that was one thing that luckily I had some guidance from Baharic. He was like, if you're going to rivet it, make sure it's like just tight enough. I'm sure now after time, like if you went and wiggled it, it would probably move. Just over time, it would just loosen up. But the hardest part, I think the hardest part about working in horn is really like trying to figure out like, so this leaf in front is dark, and then like the horn is just a natural thing. So like the ones on the side are like have some white molting looking stuff on them, and so like trying to get it to all match can be difficult. But I really enjoyed doing this project, and like I said, it was the first time that I worked in horn, and I definitely would do it again just because it was kind of cool. It's different to work in like different mediums.
Yeah.
This is just a quick little laurel brooch that I made for my apprentice, Ima, as a gift when she got her laurel. Again, it's like the two color thing that I'm really fond of. And it's really simple. It was kind of something that I thought a Celt would knock out real quick for a Saxon when she's, just as a little gift.
Wait,
this is my like, this is like the Rogues Gallery of laurel chaplets. So the first one with the blue under the over the blue is the one that I made for Ima. The next one next to it is actually the one that I made for Countess Mariana. And then this bottom one with all of the massive amount of leaves is one that the one that I made when Casca got his laurel. I figured like, Casca is brutish enough to support all the leaves that I could make.
Awesome.
This is my cornet. So I made this relatively quickly, just because it was the barony that I'd served as Baron was having, I think, their 30-year anniversary at the time, and I realized that I didn't have a cornet, so I needed something. So I just kind of knocked it out. And again, the two color thing is really my go-to. I just think that the contrast of it kind of makes things pop. And originally, when I started in the SCA, my name was Tiernan Blackwater. It's one of my registered names. Um, and so the wavy is part of my early heraldry. So I was like, oh, I wonder if I can do that. And
Uh,
like, oddly enough, I could.
my husband's name, Optimus Sade's name, is Lord of the Dark Seas.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This is a diadem that I made for Duchess Elzbieta. She's doing a little bit of Roman stuff. The diadems, they're rough because of where they have to sit to look right. They're kind of uncomfortable, right? So I always kind of recommend putting a little padding lower than the bottom of the coronet so that it kind of floats on your head a little bit. But she's worn it a couple times with some Roman stuff. But I'm pretty sure that every coronet that Elzbieta has is one that I made. I made this diadem, and then I think I made two other ones for her. But yeah, just kind of like I said, I don't really do things because like for commission anymore or at all. I just like I think I want to make this thing. Who can I make it for? And I just make it and then find somebody to give it to. This is a diadem that I made for Mariana. Again, like I said, she's kind of always been one of the people that is kind of my inspirations. And then I remember, so she had just moved back to Phoenix from Augusta, and we had gone out like the night before, and we were all like had all partied, and I was like super hungover, but I for whatever reason woke up super early in the morning, and it might have been a birthday thing, but I like went to a Sears to Dongal shop and knocked this out like super early in the morning and like through a hangover just because I like needed to get out of the house. There were too many people in my house. So I'm like, I need to get out of the house and do some art thing. So I just like went and knocked it out and like came home at like lunchtime, like, here you go, happy birthday. And it was just like it was just, yeah, it was like it was more of a gift for me because I needed to get out of the house because everybody was there and I was hungover and I was grumpy. So but like my wife will attest, like when I get grumpy, I need to have like some kind of an outlet and doing stuff like artsy stuff is really like my favorite outlet.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, so this is like my first class, if you would, of squires. That's Brian the Pious there, and then that's Oslaf with the Magnum PI mustache, and then that is Mina. Mina actually lives in Ontario now, I believe. She's in Idaho. Um, she lived in Tucson for a while and then moved away. So she's kind of no longer my squire, but yeah, Brian and Oslaf there were quite the crew.
Awesome.
Oh, so this is when I got when Duke Edward awarded me the Lion of Atenveldt. That scroll is an amazing piece of work. It's a black scroll. Yeah, it's caught me pretty much unawares. I mean, so Duke Edward and I have been friends for a very long time. When he came into the SCA, he had already had a lot of success in the ECS, and was young, and a lot of people kind of didn't like him very much because he was, he was a wrestler, professional wrestler. So he kind of brought that with him, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But there were many a fighter practice where Edward and I were the only squires, actually the only fighters there sometimes on Tuesday nights. And we'd be fighting by the cast-off light from a tennis court, and we would just kind of go to town on each other, mostly in frustration because neither his knight or my knight at the time were showing up. So I mean, and then I'm pretty sure I got a sigil, which is kind of like a thank you from Edward every reign he's reigned, because he was local for me, and because we kind of came up together through the ranks as squires. we kind of formed this bond. And but yeah, the Lion of Atenveldt was always kind of like, and it still is. I mean, when those people who are the SCA, right? So for me, I look and I see like Duke Jonathan von Trotha, Duke Craven, Duke Arthur O'Flaherty, like those guys are really like the lions of Atenveldt. And um, so like when I got it, I was pretty much floored.
It's weird. Both my sister and my husband got lions kind of around the same time, and it was a total mind trip. It was like, we're too young to be lions.
Right.
That's the generation. Those are the old foundational people. We're too young for that. And it was like a crazy realization that, oh, we're the old people now.
Yeah, right.
We're like wow, it's crazy.
Crap. Like, oh, it's cool, but crap. But
Yeah.
you know what? It's not always the old people. I mean, Valora's a lion of Atenveldt, right. And so, and like, I personally view Valora as like the next generation under me. So, maybe it's not always a bad thing for some of those people and like the younger generation to get recognized at that level, because it really, it kind of pushed me for sure. I mean, besides getting both of my peerages, getting a lion is definitely something that pushed me to like, to be way more invested in the SCA and to kind of try and make the society and the kingdom a better place.
Yeah, for sure.
I made this for Countess Asa. She's like a great friend of my family. Like she's apprenticed to my sister-in-law. She's amazing friends with my wife. She's super duper cheerleader for us when we were having our infertility issues. And she had come down to an event. Actually, no, I'm sorry. She'd come down to my wife's baby shower. And she just like picked up, came down, and that was the only reason that she came, right? And so at the time she was like, my device is going to be a mustache or something like that. So I just made her something because I thought it was amazing that she had, as a little bit of a thank you, because she has been such a cheerleader for us and personally for me and for my wife, but also just such a great friend to our family. So and it's just kind of what I do. Like, I made you something. You're a pretty girl. Here. So this is cool. So the helmet that I ended up getting from Johannes that I had worked on as part of like my first project at Windrose, my first paying gig at Windrose, was the predecessor to this. And actually, I have a picture real quick. Let's see if I don't know if it'll come through.
Let me stop sharing so that we can see that.
Okay, cool. So this picture right here. So that's the helmet that I essentially purchased from Johannes and then got paid to work on. Okay, so the picture, if you'd share screen again, that picture is like the second, third generation of that. So the picture, the helmet in the picture that I showed, actually I gifted to Nikita because he is also of a big head, and us big head guys got to stick together. So I had this helmet and I gave it to him, and then I realized I missed the helmet so much. So I made this helmet, which is like the Mach 2 version of it. And I told Nikita the only way he's getting it is if he gets off his ass and gets a Laurel. So, but yeah, so this was like the first piece that I made after I was Laurel that I was like really like excited about making for myself. The brass decorations on the cheeks are tusks. So the barony of Tariskathir, their heraldry is a boar. So it's kind of an ode to that as well. But yeah, this helmet is awesome. And unfortunately, about 4 or 5 years ago, I had some neck surgery, so I can't really support that much weight. all those rivets and all those plates matched up, and yeah, it's a little too much. So, but it's sitting on the shelf waiting for Nikita to figure out what he wants to get Laurel in.
Awesome. No pressure.
No pressure.
That's
It's the same, the Casca chaplet. So that's one of the first fluted Normans, what we would call Mediterranean Normans that I made. I made that for who is now Mistress Chani of the West. She's Squire O'Connell. And we did a trade for some costuming, but that was the first fluted helmet that I'd ever made. It's got that same forward pointed Norman kind of Phrygian hat shape.
nice.
Yeah. Ooh. So in this picture, there's a lot of cool dudes in this picture, and actually there's a cool lady in this picture too. So Duke Edward, this probably his first reign because he's doing Polish stuff, and then in front of me is Dongal, and then that's the famous Duke Uther, obviously king. He's got the crown of the West on his arm there. But over to the side of Edward is his sister, Duchess Elżbieta. So both of them are like foundations in the barony of Triscuit there.
I didn't know that he had a sister in the SCA.
Yeah, she's a duchess. She's Craven's lady.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
Rifkin and I originally wanted to do like a sibling Saturday where we interviewed
right.
siblings, and we started off with Gabe and Nick, and then we asked like 3 or 4 different sets of sisters, and they all said no. So
boy.
Okay, we're out. It's not
that's not the idea we're going with.
No. It's just not gonna work. So
yeah, she's she's one of the premier masters of defense in the Kingdom of Atenveldt.
Oh, how cool.
And yeah, so she's a badass in her own right for sure.
Oh, well, maybe we'll just have to interview her.
Heck yeah.
That'd be cool. All right.
Oh, this is a cool picture. So this is actually right after I came back from the East Kingdom. My wife and I spent a year in the East, just because we were kind of able to, and so we moved back. And this was when, and you can see in the middle there, Casca. Everybody knows Casca. Casca is king, and this is all the chivalry that had showed up for probably a Shiv Circle, because it doesn't look like any of us are wearing armor. So, but yeah, Shiv Circle in Tucson. So this was all the Shiv that showed up. So
it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I just have to say to your wife and her sister that was not a call out to them.
No, it totally was. It's okay. But
it really wasn't, because they were not the only ones.
I thought it was a cool idea, but you know what? Not everybody gets that. There's a lot of dynamics that you're trying to overcome there, right? Because not everyone gets along with their siblings.
Yep.
I mean, I know that Ed and Elżbieta like get along pretty well, but I don't know if they would interview well together.
Right.
They're great people, and I love both of them. But yeah, they might clash, and it might not make for a good interview. So maybe maybe you're saved.
Maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah. So so this picture is super young Tiernan. This is, well, it says right there, 25th. I got knighted in, let's see, 2004. This is about a year and a half after I got knighted. So that very cool tunic. That design on the front of it is based off of a medallion that was given to me at my vigil by Dongal. And I gave that tunic to Framball when he was a bigger man, like I was a bigger man, and now he's not a bigger man. So he gave that, he gifted that tunic to my squire. So it's still in rotation.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. This is relatively recent. This is when Merrick was crown prince. Is me and Dongal hanging out at an event in Triscuit. In the middle there is Sir Matthias, who was from Atenveldt and now resides in the Outlands. He's also a member of the Brotherhood of the Bengal. But yeah, it's when Merrick was Crown Prince of Atenveldt. This is Dongal and his very flashy German stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty spiffy.
Heck yeah.
I
This is
just
an Irish ring pin that I made. I every now and then I'll just see something and be like, "That's cool. I want to make one." And I think I donated this to an auction in Twin Moons, but I pretty much forged it out. So, which isn't really my normal technique. Normally, I would have just got a piece of square brass stock and did a bunch of stock removal, but I just wanted to see if I could do it. So yeah, Irish ring pin is kind of a cool thing. Not a lot of people make them. Not a lot of people even really know what they are, but they're kind of like a cloak pin. You would use the leather part to kind of tie off. So you'd pierce your cloak or what have you with the pin, and then you would tie off so that it didn't slip out. So it's kind of a cool thing.
It's totally unfamiliar to me. It's really cool.
This is a helmet I made for Count Framball. He wanted, so he does a Lombard. His technically is a Lombard persona. He wanted something Lombardish, and I was like, well, like those helmets are horrible for like an SCA kind of thing. So one of the kind of founding principles of Windrose Armory is like we're going to make medieval inspired sport armor. And that's just kind of where that comes from. So the cheek plates are a direct copy of the Lombard type of a cheek plate, but the top and the nasal is definitely just like an SCA. Dungal would probably say like it's a D&D helmet. And he's right. I took a piece of fantasy, I took a piece of historical thing and then added some D&D stuff. That little voided out diamond in the front is actually part of his heraldry. So yeah, it's definitely not a medieval representation, but it's definitely got like some roots in a medieval thing.
I think that SCA cool stuff is totally valid. You just have to be clear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, if SCA cool stuff wasn't valid, I think there would be like 50% less Laurels
right
in the SCA.
For sure.
I mean, so this is a pin that I made for Countess Mariana that actually ended up getting lost in the mail, but it's based on a 14th century style pin. Again, she does a lot of 14th century stuff, and every now and then I just feel like making something, so I just knocked it out. It's done. It's all done with hand tools. This is a coronet that I made for. Oof. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Angie. So I don't forget her SCA name. She's from up in the northern regions of the Kingdom of Atenveldt, Windale, the Shire of Windale. Those little bees are cast brass. So I basically carved a little tiny wax bee and put a rivet back on it and then I probably cast 24 of them just so that I could get enough for 6 that would actually come out. Casting really small stuff like that, it's kind of a pain in the ass, just because when you're pouring liquid metal, the gases expand at a pretty high rate, so it's hard to get a really good solid cast. So you have to vent a ton, and they don't all come out. So, but I think I was pretty happy with getting 6 of them out of a couple dozen casts. But it just, again, 2 metals, something kind of simple, stainless steel, brass, and some 45 caliber bullets. Just in the picture for the hell of it.
Because that's the ultimate accessory.
Exactly. So this is a pair of shoulder cups that I made as a prize for the cancer tournament last year, the year before. So it's funny, I was talking to Sir Zechariah, who's my brother-in-law, recently, and he's like, what's funny is in like those big high-end tournaments, like the guys who win those tournaments usually don't really need the stuff. Like, Duke Galenon doesn't need a pair of shoulder cups because Duke Galenon fights in the stuff that he fights in, and he's been successful in it. So, you know,
He's not
yeah.
going to change it
Um,
up.
so it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the cool thing is that like the year that Duke Galenon did win, he gifted the thing out. So and you know, so part of me is like, yeah, um, you know, maybe something that isn't armor might be a good gift. And Countess Mariana has actually gone that way for the past couple of years,
Right.
where it's not big prizes in armor. It's like maybe a dagger or something that's like a dress accessory, which is way better. Because like I said, those dudes that are like finishing in the top don't really need a pair of shoulder cups, but maybe their squires do. And you know, the cool thing is that you know you fought in the tournament and you won a cool thing, and you know it was my honor to make stuff. I've been able to make a couple of prizes for the cancer tournament, and it's you know, and I've helped marshal the cancer tournament a bunch of years. It's very near and dear to my heart, and it's very near and dear to my family's heart. You know, because my sister-in-law is like a two-time survivor of breast cancer, so you know, any time that she needs help, or any time that she needs something to do with this cancer tournament, or usually just kind of in general in life, I'm right there to help. So, um, you know, but yeah, this is a pair that I made. It's stainless steel and copper. The little dangly leather bits. It's kind of cool.
I like
This is kind of an in progress picture of my current helmet. So a lot of times I'll make myself, when I'm making anything, it has to kind of sit and I have to look at it for a few days, sometimes weeks. There was just something not right. I wasn't loving about this, so it kind of sat. And yeah, so ended up being like I needed to make a couple little tweaks to the cheek plate and how it was like fitting in there, and then it was fine. But um, uh, right now, you know, because I'm not doing it for a living, I have the luxury of like putting a project in, you know, on the shelf and like just staring at it for a few
that.
hours every now and then, and not having a deadline. And not having a deadline kind of really allows me to kind of like do my best work. Oh, this is a cool picture. So that's the same thing from Crate. So that's the Craven County Coronet, but this is probably the most recent county coronet that I made below it. Countess Asta from the Outlands, this is a friend of mine, and it was just like, hey, could you? I'd showed up randomly at an Outlands event, and she was like, can you make this thing? And I was like, yep, I can totally make this thing. So I just you know, knocked out something really super duper simple. So, but yeah, it's like the beginning and like the most recent, the county coronet I made, and then the most recent county coronet.
Your wife is throwing you shade about saying you knocked it out.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure she is. It's her job.
She thinks it's
So this is, she thinks it's what?
maybe. Oh, I can't get it to come up now. Never mind. Go ahead.
All right. So this is a helmet that I made for Duke Vilharic. Duke Vilharic is, you guys, he's been interviewed a couple of times, I believe. So he's one of my better friends. I really kind of clicked with him and bonded with him. You know, he lived with me for a little while when he was here in Atenveldt. But yeah, this is probably the best one of this style of helmet that I've ever made. The lines are super duper clean. Yeah. He told me like when, you know, after he had it and wore it for a while, that like this is the helmet he feels most medieval in, and I think that was probably the highest compliment that I've ever been paid about a piece of armor.
That's
you know, because I'm making armor, and you know, if it's something that can transport you there when you put it on, then it's really kind of, I've done my job. But yeah, this for me is definitely like he designed the ducal leaves on it, and that kind of started a thing for me in my head where like if I'm going to make a helmet or anything, a coronet for a duke, then each duke will get a specific like set of leaves. It'll be their style, and I'm not going to duplicate. And so he kind of set me on that path. But yeah, this is like I said, this is the coolest version of this helmet that I made. Um, yeah, I totally love it. And again, black and white, two color, it really just pops all the decorations.
He says it's his baby.
Oh, and this is the reason that I do what I do, and the reason that I'm in the position in life where I'm at. This is me and my wife at an event in Tariskathir, you know, and I think that look that she's giving me right there is pretty much the reason that I do 90% of the things that I do in life.
So I have to say, going through all of your pictures and seeing the pictures of you two together got me really teary. It's beautiful how you look at each other.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she's pretty much everything for me. Anything I've ever wanted in life, she has made possible. Uh, yeah, I couldn't do half the things that I do without her support, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today in my life without her. And so I couldn't be more grateful, um, to have been lucky enough to find her.
Yay!
Well, this is the new class. This is my new squires. So that big giant fire plug in the middle there, that is William of Grimsby, which I call Grim. This is us at Great Western, the last Great Western War. We were all sporting that water bouget is my wife's heraldry, part of my wife's heraldry, and then the crosses are part of my former heraldry. So that's William of Grimsby there. Is an amazing person, one of my best friends. And then next to him is William, Squire William. His real name is Harry. I call him Squire Cop. He's a police officer on Avondale PD. And then next to him is CJ. At this particular event, CJ was awarded an award from the Queen of Avakal. It's like basically a thank you award. It's the only, he's very, very new to the SCA. It's the only award that he has in the SCA, but we were hanging around camp, and Her Majesty was walking through our camp, and one of her ladies had a big basket full of stuff, and he hopped up and followed them around and carried the basket, and while she delivered all of her her thank yous and her largesse to the other kings and queens, and he just literally hopped up. He's out of armor for like 2 minutes, and like got hopped up and walked around and followed them around, and it's just kind of a testament to the cool next generation of kids that are coming up. And that people say the SCA is dying, and when I look at kids like CJ and Harry, I'm like, you're wrong. It might be going in a slightly different direction than some of us would like it or some of us want it, but it's not dying. There are kids that are amazing out there, like Harry and like CJ, that are going to push it to the next generation.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Oh, so that's Nikita. So that's the guy that I gifted my helmet to. So like I said, like we're a big head club, right? Like he has the same size head as I do, and probably bigger because he's got his beautiful locks of hair. Yeah, but so that's me just checking. Is your head still the same as mine? Because you gotta, if you want that new helmet, you got to be a Laurel. And then this picture here is last Estrella. It's the first Estrella that I fought in. First Estrella that I fought in since my neck surgery. So it was kind of exciting for me to be able to take the field at Estrella again. It had been a while.
Cool.
Oh, this is Sir Demetrius. So this is my only graduate that is not a double peer. And like I said, once things kind of open back up, and he's able to get out there, I think that'll probably be a thing of the past, and he'll become a double peer. He's an amazing weaver. But this is right as he received his buffet and right as I was judging whether or not I thought that buffet was good enough. He's knighted by Merrick, so it was definitely good enough. And then this is right after he got his buffet.
So sweet. All right.
This is super duper cool picture. Everybody but that head that's popping in there.
Photo bomber.
The photo bomber. All of those gentlemen there were one-time barons of Turiska there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And
it's my current helmet.
Shoot, sorry.
Other helmet. It's all right.
There we go. Current helmet.
Current helmet. This is my current helmet. It's very lightweight. I designed it so that my neck couldn't extend or flex in too many directions because of my neck. So it kind of grounds out on my gorget and on my chest to prohibit any kind of super flex in my neck, which is against doctor's orders.
Okay. And then that other picture.
That's that other one. Yeah. My Laurel helmet. I made this cornet for Framball. The same thing with it's kind of just voided out that diamond. It's a triple metal piece. I posted it recently and a bunch of people were like, oh, that's amazing. And I was like, oh, I thought it was really plain, but I think that's really kind of my style. It's just plain.
Simple. Clean. I like to say it's.
Yeah. I made this pair of spurs for my Grand Squire who got knighted last Estrella. He's 6'4", 350 pounds. So I thought that he would need something to kind of motivate an elephant because that's probably the only mount that he could ride. So I made some. These are actually based off of a pair of Roman spurs from the 3rd century.
How many Grand Squires do you have?
I have Marcus and I have Kaz. So 2.
2. That's pretty impressive.
I made this bracelet for Maneko. So Maneko did the night hunt, the Shiv hunt that was going on. Excuse me. And at the beginning of it, Duke Kenrick from the East Kingdom had said that he would make a bracelet, a silver bracelet for the winner. And then he had tragically passed away. And then Anton was like, hey, I'm willing to take on his offer. And then a bunch of us kind of said, yeah, we would do that the same. So I basically was like, I'll make a bracelet for the Atenvelter who has the most fights from the Shiv hunt. Anton was able to send me a small piece of silver that Kenrick had been from his collection. So I actually incorporated it into this piece. I put it in my electromelt and melted a bunch of silver that Anton had, that I had, and then that piece that I had from Kenrick, and made this bracelet for Maneko as part of her winning the most fights. I was also had enough of the metal left that had a piece of Kenrick's silver in it to make a pelican medallion for his wife. So I sent that to Duke Brennan from the East, and he gifted it to her. And we've kind of become Facebook buddies now. It's very cool.
That's really sweet. Yeah. And that is the end of our slideshow.
Sweet.
You made it.
I did.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered?
No, I actually want to put this thing up though. This is my Laurel scroll.
Gorgeous.
It's totally cool. So my sister-in-law got it framed for me for this Christmas. It was made by 5 or 6 different ladies. It was made by my wife, my sister-in-law, made by Duchess Cecilia. It's based off of an actual period piece, but it has all kinds of like cool little things in there. And down the bottom, it has my heraldry and 2 supporters. One thing that I wanted to mention. So as a supporter of a red ram for Duke Aaron, who is always somebody that supported me in my endeavors in the SCA all the time. And it also has a Yale Beast, which is also for Duke Craven. Again, somebody who's always supported me in my endeavors. And then it has the heraldry of Johannes in there as well. So just something that I wanted to showcase for this and kind of point out. So
Good job, ladies. That's really cool. So
yeah.
I wanted to thank you for inspiring me to do this series of interviews. You did just a Facebook post talking about that it would be interesting to have a series of interviews on people who did personas.
Yeah.
And I warped that into this.
I think that my
cat just jumped on my back and spread
yeah.
sticker. Go ahead.
I think the idea of the persona development would have been good for about 10 episodes. Once you kind of covered every kind of era and then like reached and maybe got a couple of extra, it would have kind of like fizzled out. And I think the way I think that the way you're doing it has brought way more inspiration. I mean, you know, I watch almost every single one of them, and yeah, they're super duper cool.
Well, thank you. It would not have happened without you. And I've been trying to hit persona people too. So we've had a couple
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Intense persona people that are just like, wow, next level.
I think your sister's interview with, I probably got it wrong, Attias. Who's the second guy you did it with? Attias.
Yeah.
That was the one that kind of gave me the idea of like, this should be a thing. Like, because I don't know him at all, but I watched that interview and I was like, man, I like Cynthia and stuff. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We call each other brother and sister, which is kind of weird because his wife was my Laurel. So I don't know how that dynamic works. But
stuff.
He has been an incredible muse for me. And he's one of the most honorable guys out there. So
nice.
That's why we picked him to do our first interview, because we just really love him a lot. Yeah. So thank you very, very much for tonight. We went really long.
My pleasure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we did, huh?
Yeah, I think we're at like 2.5 hours, something like that.
We had some technical difficulties, so. Yeah,
we did, but it's okay. We got through it. That was a lot of fun. Tomorrow, Rifkin and I are interviewing Arthur of Lockhaven. And
oh my gosh, he's like a hero. I'll definitely be tuning in.
Yeah,
he's legitimately like a hero.
It's kind of crazy. And then Monday night on Grace Under Pressure, Beatrice from Lockhart. Hopefully I said that right.
Nice.
And then Tuesday and Wednesday are two of the ladies who inspired me to do an Asian persona. Raven Keraton is a Scythian persona Laurel from the Eugene area, and then Duchess Lau did a Chinese reign with Duke Dak here in Ontier. So
nice.
Kind of a big week of people that I really, really admire next week, and it's that's like cool. Not every week right now, so it's awesome.
Right. It's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Look forward to watching them.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Good night, everybody.
Alrighty. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.